Tonight's show and topic of discussion do not necessarily reflect the opinion of Spaced Out Radio, SOR Media, or its hosts. Listener discretion is advised. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are about to take you higher. Broadcasting from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado to you listening around the world. Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays on Spaced Out Radio. You can follow Tessa on our Facebook page at Spaced Out Radio, on Twitter at TessaTNT, and you can subscribe to her YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for our archives. Now broadcasting from our Mile High Radio Clubhouse on Spaced Out Saturdays with your host, Tessa N Thomas.
Good evening, Spaced Out Radio. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 419.9 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, March 2nd, Sunday, March 3rd for those of you on the East Coast and beyond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you guys had a rockin' Saturday, an awesome day, and an even better evening. I am your host, Tessa TNT, and I'm live tonight broadcasting from beautiful Bayfield, Colorado. We are 150,000 strong nightly on Spaced Out Radio Network, spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, 99.1 FM WQEE in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead, 107.7 FM UPRN, Louisiana, Revolution Radio, and KZFX FM, as well as Deep Talk Radio, which you can find at deeptalkradio.com. Don't forget to head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can peruse the Spaced Out Radio store and read the encounter online dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Mr. Dave Spinks. Dave has been investigating and researching the supernatural since 1986 due to several experiences he had as a young man. Since that time, he was conducted several hundred investigations in the U.S. as well as Europe. Dave served in the U.S. Air Force for 8 years and went on to work as a federal law enforcement officer, retiring in 2011. During his paranormal investigations, Dave has experienced many hair-raising and unnerving things as one might imagine. Having investigated strange phenomena for over 30 years, he has built many friendships with some of the most well-known investigators in the field today. He has been seen on various television shows to include Terror in the Woods, Paranormal 911, Unexplained, Strange Creatures, and These Woods Are Haunted, to name a few. He was also featured in the film Flatwoods Monster, A Legacy of Fear by Small Town Monsters. He has been a featured guest on hundreds of paranormal-themed radio shows and podcasts. He is often a featured guest speaker at paranormal conferences around the country. Dave is also an author on topics that include cryptids, hauntings, ufology, releasing his first book, West Virginia Bigfoot, in 2018, and was featured in the highly successful Wood Knock series by David Weatherly. Hey Dave, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for coming on tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. No problem. I enjoy this show every time I'm on it.
I was so grateful that you came on so last minute. I was like, what am I going to do? So I replaced one guest with an even better guest. So I'm super stoked.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Right place at the right time. Sometimes that's how it works, right?
Right. Yeah. And like I was saying earlier, sometimes things happen for a reason. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got your start with the paranormal?
Yeah, actually, I really started researching and investigating the paranormal, like you said in my bio, as a young man, because I had a couple of crazy experiences that really the first one unnerved me, and the second one really blew my mind. And oddly enough, both of them had to do with both of my grandfathers. And, you know, of course, I was a young man. I wasn't really technically investigating. I was just researching to try to find out what in the hell it was that I saw at first with my grandfather, my dad's dad. And, you know, it was actually a Bigfoot encounter I had here with him while on a fishing trip in West Virginia, and I tell all about it in my West Virginia Bigfoot book I released last year. And the long and short of it is we were fishing, having a great day, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview of it because I want folks to read the book because it's just a crazy story, you know. And we were fishing, had a good day fishing, caught our limit. We cooked them up. We were eating. We were, you know, having a great time together because I only got to see, and that time of my life, my stepdad was in the military, and we were out west in New Mexico, and I would only get to see both sets of my grandparents when I came home, you know, for the summer and to visit all my family and everything. And we happened to be on one of our fishing trips, and, you know, we had got done fishing, just sitting there really full, enjoying the evening. It was probably around a half an hour or so before dark. And out of nowhere, this humongous splash happens out in the middle of the river. You know, we jumped up because it startled us. It was all quiet. You know, you heard the frogs singing and everything. We jumped up. We couldn't figure out what in the heck had caused this splash. And it was a massive splash. Like, the water rained down from it, you know, and it was just, wow, that was a huge splash. What could have caused that? So we're looking around in the river, looking for maybe a large tree branch that had fallen off, maybe a dead tree branch, you know, fallen off from one of the trees into the river. And we just couldn't find anything. And Grandpa said, well, maybe one of the rocks on the rock cliff over there rolled off and we just didn't see it, you know, but because the other side of the river was really, really steep, and it's in a big, pretty steep canyon area. And that side of the river, there's no people that go over there because it's so steep and rugged. People just don't try to get over there to fish. It's too hard. And so after several minutes, you know, we sat back down and got relaxed. And then I heard that distinct sound when you hear something flying and hitting the tree limbs. And I looked out of the corner of my eye, and I see this huge boulder towing up in an upwards direction coming out of the trees from the other side of the river. And it was a boulder of the size that a grown man couldn't have got his arms all the way around it. You know, that's how big it was. And then kaploosh, and it hit the water. We were jumping up, looking around. What the heck did that? And now we're really amped up. You know, we're like, what in the heck? And I look for my grandpa, and he's gone. He runs behind me to the tent, and I know what he's going to get. He goes to get the shotgun, you know. So he comes back with the shotgun, and I'm standing there. I'm only a 13-year-old boy because this happened in 1983. And I'm just standing there dumbfounded, going, what in the heck is going on? Because it's all happening so fast. And my grandpa yells out across the river, you heathens, knock her off or I'm going to shoot. So in his mind, he's thinking it's people over there messing with us, you know. And, and he was a Baptist minister for 40 years. So about that time after he said that, a few seconds later, you hear the most god-awful, guttural scream you can even imagine come from that side of the river. And it just echoed down through that canyon where the river is, just like you would not believe. And it still sends chills up and down my spine to this day because I'll never forget it, you know. And so when that happened, he cracked off a shot over there because he freaked out. And you're talking, my grandpa, he was a World War II veteran. He stormed the beaches of Normandy. He was in the second wave. He was a medic. So you can imagine what he saw. He's not afraid of anything. So he cracks off a shot, and then you hear another one of those god-awful screams and roars and howls just coming out from over there. He yells at me. He says, get to the truck, boy. The truck's about 20, 30 yards away from us. And it's parked at an angle so that I ran over there and I got down behind the front fender and I'm peeking around and trying to see what the hell it was that threw this humongous boulder at us and is making these god-awful screams, you know. Well, my grandpa must have fired, 4 or 5 rounds, and then he comes running towards me, and that's when I see the trees, 40 and 50 and 60-foot trees shaking all the way to the top, and something is just rip-roaring, tearing through there, you know, making this god-awful noise. And that's when I see it. I see a large, probably 7 to 8 foot tall creature covered in hair, and I saw it from about the waist up. It had a little bitty head compared to the rest of its body and no neck, and the head was kind of pointy on top. I never saw its face really because it was a good ways away, probably 65, 75 yards away, but I could make out how big it was, and it was shaking these trees like they were just toothpicks as it was walking up away from us and up and out of that canyon. Well, as my grandpa is running towards me, I realized he must have seen it too, and he picks me up with one arm and slings me, opens the door of the truck and slings me from the driver's side all the way to the passenger side, jumps in and says, "Boy, we're getting out of here. That's not of God." And he peels out of there, and I got my head in my hands thinking we're going to die as he's bottoming the truck out trying to get out this old 2 or 3 mile dirt road that's just chock full of big potholes, and he's dragging the bottom out of the truck, and I'm like, the truck's going to break down, that thing's going to get us, we're going to die out here. And we finally make it up out of there onto the hard top, and we drive around for quite a while. Neither one of us is saying anything, and he pulls off finally, and we left our gear and everything there, our tent, all of our fishing gear, everything. He pulls off, and he said, "Son, we better not tell no one about this because they're going to think we're crazy." So we kind of made a pact right then and there never to talk about it. Well, there's a funny side to this story, too. So many, many years later, and this was a few years ago, my grandpa dies. And that part's not funny, but the next part is. So I wanted to tell this story doing what I do in the paranormal, and I promised him I never would talk about it, so I figured once he died, I can talk about it now.
Right.
So I decide I'm going to talk about it, but I call my uncle first, and I tell him what I'm going to do. I'm saying, I said, "Uncle Stanton, I got to tell you this story that happened to me and Grandpa back in '83 when we were fishing trip and this and that." And I started telling him about it. And he just blurts out, "Oh, you're talking about that time you and him saw that monkey man in the woods when you were fishing." And I'm like, "He told you?" And I said, "Yeah."
You were sworn to secrecy.
Said, yeah. And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I'd never talked about this for all these years, and he told you." He said, "Well, he came to me like 20, 25 years ago, and he said, I got to get this off my chest in case something happens to me. I want people to know. I want someone to know what we saw that day and that it really happened and all that." And then, lo and behold, I get my uncle tells me about an encounter he had very near the same location. So, it was like in the 70s when him and his friends were out there camping in this old moonshiner's cave. And then he tells me about another encounter that our Uncle George had when he was cutting firewood about 4 or 5 miles away from that same area. So after all that transpired, I got, several accounts from immediate family members, and it was just mind-blowing that, hey, wow, they saw something too down there and had experiences. But as I was a kid, I wanted to know what in the heck it was that I saw. And I didn't know anything about the Patterson-Gimlin film. I didn't even know about Bigfoot at that age. I was 13. It was 1983. And so I started going to the local libraries and stuff, and then I started coming across newspaper articles of people seeing large hairy creatures in the woods known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch and many other names, especially here in West Virginia. The names of these creatures almost go locally, county by county. They have different names for them. So, and then I came across the whole Yeti story and everything like that. And then, of course, the Patterson-Gimlin film. And then I saw the show called In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and I was like, wow, man, many people have seen this thing. I'm not crazy, So that's where it all really started for me in the paranormal realm. And then, when I was about 16, my other grandpa, who was also a World War II vet, he had caught pneumonia when he was up in Iceland during the war, and he had like collapsed lungs and stuff, and he was pretty sick. But all his life after that, but he smoked the old Camel non-filter cigarettes like a freight train. He just didn't care. He smoked and he was going to smoke, and he didn't care. Well, it came to the point where he only had like a quarter of one lung left, and he actually had to have a trach tube put in his throat where they had constant oxygen flowing so he could breathe, but he would smoke cigarettes through that hole in his throat. That's how hardcore he was about it. He didn't care, and he ended up, getting real sick, and the story goes from there. I was at my dad's for the summer, and now this is my mom's dad I'm talking about, who smoked through the hole in his throat. And I was spending the summer with my dad, and I woke up out of a dream, just out of a dead sleep, and there's my grandpa, my mom's dad, standing at the foot of the bed at my dad's house. Now, my mom and dad had been divorced for many, many years at this point, you know, and there's no reason my grandpa, my mom's dad, would be over at his house, let alone at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was. But he was as clear as me and you, I mean, solid. And I kind of shook my head doing the old double take, rubbing my eyes, and I'm like, what are you doing here, Papa? And he didn't say anything. He just looked at me and smiled, and I noticed for a split second he looked really good, and he didn't have the oxygen in his throat. And then, excuse me, and then poof, he just disappeared right in front of my face. And I was like, wow, that was a crazy dream. I'm going back to sleep, you know? So I went back to sleep. But the next day when I woke up and everything, that dream, you know, quotation marks dream, was on my mind, you know, it was so real. It felt so real. So I wanted to check on him. So I called up to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and my uncle from out of state answered the phone. And I'm like, what are you doing there? And he said, no one called you yet, Dave? And I said, no. Why? He said, your grandpa died last night. We're coming in for the funeral. Mm-hmm. So my jaw just kind of opened up, and I was like, what? You know, I didn't say anything about this weird experience, this dream I had the night before, the night that he died, until 6 months later. We were all up at Grandma's house eating dinner with her. A whole bunch of us from the family were there, you know, spending time with her and stuff. And I'm eating dinner, and I just decided in my head, I said, I'm gonna come out and tell everybody about this experience I had. They're gonna think I'm nuts, but I don't care. I want to get it off my chest. So I told them the whole thing about the dream and everything. And I noticed as I'm telling it, several of the people's faces in my family went really pale looking and wide-eyed and had the deer in the headlight look. And the room just erupted, and they all started saying, you know, hey, I had the same freaking dream the night he died. You know, like there was 7 or 8 people in my family that had all experienced the same exact thing the night he died. And I knew right then and there he had come to say goodbye or check on us before he went to wherever he was going. And ever since those 2 experiences, man, I've been pursuing the paranormal, you know, pretty hardcore my whole entire life. Of course, during your working life and being in the military as I was and in law enforcement, I was limited, but I also started conducting investigations of people's homes because the word got out through my friends that I did that kind of thing. And, you know, a friend of a friend or a family member of a friend was experiencing strange phenomena in their houses or their places of business, and I would get called in. Hey, I got a friend who does that kind of thing. You know, I'll hook you guys up. And that's how it all began in the investigation realm for me. And, you know, I got to investigate over in Europe when I was there, in Italy, and then, you know, the bulk of my investigations are here in West Virginia, but I've investigated all over the country, you know, foreign countries and here in West Virginia. So that's the long and short of my entry into the paranormal world.
And it's awesome that you got to go overseas, and I am imagining that's through your military career, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how are the investigations in Europe different than over here? Is there any real difference? I'm sure there's older spirits.
Well, 2 of the places I did was an old cotton mill, and then this old monastery called San Lucido Monastery in northern Italy. And those were just places that I had read up on and found out about, and they were very close to my location. So I actually went out there and, you know, conducted some paranormal investigations there. And got some pretty startling evidence, you know, while I was out there. And you know, I didn't do people's homes or anything out there because I didn't speak fluent Italian, and who knows what they would think about that, you know. So it was just supposed haunted locations while I was out there. I also did many times where I walked the streets of Venice at night, and when there was no one around, and I would do EVPs and stuff, and I got a whole bunch of them. So, you know, that's one of the oldest cities in the world, Venice. I mean, it's nuts down there, man. I mean, that place, you can feel the energy.
Right. And were you able to communicate with the spirits? Like you're saying, you don't know the language, and a lot of people scoff when they look at different paranormal shows.
Yeah, well, what I did was I had a friend, had friends that were Italians. I actually, I lived in an Italian villa owned by Italians when I was in the military, and I became friends with them, and the family that I rented from. They would have me over for authentic Italian meals and all that stuff. And a few of them spoke fluent English, so I would tell them, I got my recorder and I had them ask numerous questions in Italian. I would tell them the questions in English and they would say it on my recorder. And then when I went to investigate, I would play the recorder in Italian and then listen for responses. And I got some really awesome responses in Italian.
And what kind of responses did you get? Like, what exactly happened and what were they saying? Did they need help or?
Basic, No, it was just basic stuff. I would ask questions, is there anyone here with me? And I got names, and I got responses of, I said, how did you die? And, one time I got this guy said he was murdered. And this other guy said said he had been killed by the army or something to that effect in Italian. And then another one was a little kid that said they drowned in the, right there, where they run the boats and stuff in one of the canals. So, just stuff like that was pretty eye-opening. And it made sense and it was relevant to where I was. One guy said he was killed by the Romans, the Roman army or something like that. If I remember, you got to remember that was back in 1996 and 97. That was numerous years ago for me. And I've still got those recordings on my old tape recorder, or my tapes, cassette tapes.
So these are actual EVPs. That's awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were they grade A, or did you have to use a certain app?
No, you could hear them. No, you could hear them clear as a bell. I mean, they were definitely audible where you could hear them. Some of them were lower than others, but you could crank up the volume and put headphones on and hear them really well.
That's so awesome. And like you were saying before with the dream with your grandpa, I think that's the easiest way for spirits to come through. My mother came through a couple times. That way, my dad, after he passed, came through in dreams. Because it's so hard for them to gain the power to communicate with us in this earthly realm, and to come through in the dream realm, I think is substantially easier for them to communicate with us through that.
Yeah, and when you're sleeping, your defenses are down and everything's down. And, and you got to be careful, too, because you never know if it's something portraying one of your loved ones, trying to gain your trust. Like, all my people are dead. Like, my mom and dad are dead. All my grandparents are dead. And I've had stuff try to come through on ghost boxes and stuff that were acting like they were my loved ones. And I refuse to communicate with them. I will not do it because I don't know if I trust that it's actually them. You know what I'm saying? And you got to be really careful. It is dangerous communicating with spirits. I've had attachments from doing this for so many years, and I know a lot of other people that have had them too. And I just don't know if I could trust that it would actually be one of my loved ones, because I would ask questions. When they started doing that, I would ask a question that only, say if it was my mom, that she and I would know, and they wouldn't get it right, and I would just say, no, it's not you, get out of here, I'm done, and I would shut the whole session down, because they will, negative spirits and entities will use that against you.
Yeah, it's so true, and I've heard that with the Ouija board. I've never had that experience with the ghost box or any other tools or apps that I've used. I use so many different things for my paranormal team that I have out here, but I have had that happen. I've used the Ouija board only once, and that was when I was in MRP, and at first I got on there, and I was like, can I talk to my mom? And it said no, and I was like, screw you then, I'm going to go take a shower. And I came back, and this was during Hurricane Bonnie, and the Ouija board's sitting there on my rack, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Nobody was around. The Ouija board was sitting there. So I sat down on it and tried it again, and she came through. At first it was moving really slow, and then it was moving faster and faster and faster, and she said all my siblings' names, told me to tell my dad and my siblings that she's okay and she loves them and everything's going to be okay, and I continued to talk to her. The weird thing was that when I was doing this, my crewmates would come up and they were trying to get my attention But I didn't hear a word they were saying. I was so tuned in or kind of blocked into that board that I didn't even hear them saying my name and trying to get my attention. And then I learned, you're not supposed to do that on your own. And
no, just getting ready to tell you that.
Yeah, and when I called my dad, he's like, well, that could be a spirit trying to pretend that it's your mom, so don't get too excited. And so I was kind of bummed out for a little bit, because she had died. She was killed by a drunk driver when I was 5, almost 6. But I'm like you, like, all my family, besides my siblings, are gone. But I've only seen my mom twice since she passed. And I've only seen my dad a couple times, and he's never talked to me. But, you know, he's got that same grumpy look that he always had, and it's great to see them. But yeah, like you're saying, you never know if it's really your family or it's something else trying to influence you and gain your trust and make you think it's them, so you'll use it more and more. But that was the only time I ever used it, twice in one night, and then I just left it alone. I was raised LDS. I'm a Jack Mormon now, but I still don't use it, and I still tell people, like, don't use that. And other people are like, well, isn't that the same as using dowsing rods or any other tool? Which it can be, but it's kind of different, I think. It's kind of opening a doorway, and it's marketed to kids at a really young age, and if they don't use it correctly, they just leave it open, and who knows what's going to come through, you know?
Well, yeah, and not only that, you know, the way I talk to people about it is, when you use a Ouija board, now, you know, I'm not saying you know, if that's your choice and you want to use it, but it comes with dangers, you know. When you use a Ouija board, you're actually allowing the spirit to come use your energy to manipulate the planchette. And I don't agree with that. I don't want anything using my energy or me to manipulate anything. If you're using a ghost box, perhaps, you know, per se, or something else of that avenue, they're using the energy from the box. They're not using your energy. You don't allow things to take your energy and use you to gain energy, because that can be a recipe for disaster. And that's my opinion. You know, there's no right or wrong in this, but, you know, a lot of the residential cases I've done, and believe me, I've done hundreds over the years, when there's a negative haunting going on, one of the first questions I ask these folks, have they ever played with a Ouija board? And in over 95% of my cases, these people have used a Ouija board, and those were all negative hauntings, you know. 95% of the negative hauntings, they have used a Ouija board. So, to me, the numbers don't lie. You know, they're opening doorways, they're not doing it correctly, and those doorways are staying open, or they're, you know, allowing something to use their energy and attach to them. Then they're asking for a whole recipe of just bad juju, man. And, you know, to me, like I said, the numbers don't lie. You have to be very careful. And there's certain ways to use each piece of equipment and certain ways not to use it. So you got to know what you're doing, and please be careful. If you don't know what you're doing, ask someone that knows what they're doing, and don't ever do it alone.
Yeah, that's where I messed up. But it was a really good experience, like the things she was telling me and knowing my siblings' names, and she just wanted us to know she was okay.
Well, yeah, like I said, you could get lucky and have a good experience, but you're also playing Russian roulette, you know. You know, be better safe than sorry, to use the old adage, you know.
Yeah, and the funny thing about this board, it came from Private Black, who actually died during exercises. He was laying in the road in the prone position and doing his thing, and this tank ran him over. So after that, the male barracks and the female barracks were kind of passing it back and forth. But yeah, that was the first time I'd ever used it. That was the last time I ever used it. I had a mentor which used one like a cell phone, and she's like, you want to come over and use the Ouija board tonight? And I was like, no, I'm okay, but I'll film it if you want me to. And she'd laugh at me, and but she ended up dying from cancer, and she had all kinds of weird activity in her house, and I don't know. It just freaks me out.
Yeah, so you take some of those accounts, you know, into consideration there. You got a couple of different people using Ouija boards, and they die of just, you know, I'm taking it that girl and that guy are very young people, you know, and they die of, you know, crazy circumstances. What's the odds you're going to get ran over by one of your own tanks in the military? Very, 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 very slim, you know. And then, you know, the girl's using it and she dies of cancer at a young age, you know. You know, take that in consideration. Was it paranormal? It could be. We don't know, but, you know, why take that risk?
Yeah, and some of these entities are like parasites. They just kind of latch onto you and put toxins into you and cause different terrible things, like you were saying, to happen. And it's kind of interesting, like you were saying, to think about it. Like, this guy died a very tragic and weird way. Like, what are the odds that that would happen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then for her to die, and she was quite young, for her to die from cancer that just kept spreading and spreading and spreading. It went from her lungs to her liver, to her spine, then her brain, and it was just very tragic. And she was such a good person, and I hate that happened to her. But you never know, using these different things and having attachments, how it could affect you.
Yeah. And that's what negative entities do. You know, they seek to destroy souls and people. And you know, by using certain things and doing certain things, they use any weakness you may have and exploit that. Whether you say you like to drink a lot, they'll use that against you. If you like to do, you know, if you smoke weed or whatever, or drugs, you know, they will use anything negative that they can to, and further that against you. Any little opening they can find. So they cause people to have financial problems. They cause divorces. They break families apart, by causing little things to happen that are out of the norm, you know. And, you know, for instance, say you're married, or you and your boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever the case may be. Say one of you had some money in your purse or your wallet, and all of a sudden it came up missing. And you start blaming each other, you know, this and that, little things like that. And they will create that opening and make it bigger and bigger and bigger until you have this mass blow up and you are no longer together, because they look for that kind of thing. And I've seen it happen to many, many people over the years, you know. For me, example, I did this case, and we actually put a team of people together, and we went to this notorious haunted house in Pennsylvania, and we actually lived in this place for over a month, 24/7. Very notorious house. Numerous families over the years had moved in this place and moved out right away. And it was sold as a known haunted house. And it was on the market as a haunted house for sale. And we lived in this place. And negative shit happened to each and every one of us while we were there. One guy, he only lasted about a week, and he was gone. He rolled out. He cried like a baby, a grown man who was a you know, a seasoned paranormal investigator who I'd investigated with many times, and we've been through some pretty nasty locations, and nothing affected him. And this place made him break down, and you know, he rolled out of there, and he's like, "This place is pure evil. I'm done, man." And he was crying like a baby. I don't know what happened to him. He still never talked about it, but he rolled out. A couple of the guys got into physical altercations in the house. A girl that was there didn't even know she was pregnant, and she had a miscarriage. All kinds of stuff happened, and I went back 3 more times and lived in it for 2 more weeks, you know. And right after that investigation, I noticed a little lump come up on my leg, on my thigh, and it was about the size of a dime. You know, no big deal. I had the doctor check it out, and they said, "Oh, it just looks like a fatty tumor or an ingrown hair or something. You know, just watch it, see what happens." Well, in no time at all, it was the size of a quarter, and I started pushing on my leg, and I felt something inside my leg. So I went to another doctor, and they said, "Oh, man, that don't feel good in there. We're going to send you for an MRI right now and a ultrasound." Well, after they did the ultrasound first, and it was a huge freaking mass in my leg the size of a softball. And the doctor's like, "Dude, that's coming out next week." And, you know, we got to send it off for testing. He said, "It doesn't look like cancer or anything right now, but we can't take that risk." And he said, "Are you having any problems in your foot or leg?" And I said, "Well, my foot's been going numb off and on lately." He goes, "Well, that's because it's cutting off the blood flow to your foot." So they took it out, sent it off to a specialty clinic, because I used the VA, you know, sent it off to Richmond, Virginia Specialty Hospital. And about 3 weeks later, they call me up and said, "Dude, we got good news and bad news. Which one do you want? I said, give me both of them, And he says, the good news is the whole thing isn't cancer, but it has cancer in it. And you're going to have another couple of surgeries because we got to go in there and cut all around that and test the area around where we took the tumor out. So, there's a prime example of what I was just talking about. I spent a lot of time in a negative location, and I come up with cancer. Never had anything like that with me, So, and I've known numerous other investigators that have had similar things happen to them. Numerous other investigators that had such severe attachments they quit the paranormal, and others that had crazy stuff happen, crazy divorces. There's actually been, if you do a little research and check around, there's been numerous investigators that have committed suicide, or there's been murders, say if it was a woman, the husband murdered the woman. Now, we can't say for sure it's paranormal, but to me, there's no such thing as that many coincidences, man. So,
Right.
You gotta look outside the box and see it for what it may be,
Yeah, there was that, it was a husband-wife team that worked with Ghost Adventures, and it was actually a murder-suicide that happened, and it does make you wonder, did something possess these people?
Mark and Debbie, I knew both of them.
Yeah, and they were really good people, and everybody was like, no way did this happen, but it did, and it kind of shows you the hazards of being in this field.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody knows Debbie ran EVP sessions at her house 24/7. So, you gotta really, I never do that stuff in my house ever, just for my own precautionary reasons. You know what I'm saying? Wherever I live, it's always, grounded, and I protect it with numerous different means, and I do not do sessions in my house at all, period. So, it is what it is. If you want to take those kind of risks, it's up to you, but I'm here to tell you, be careful what you ask for, because you might just get it.
Have you ever had something follow you home and possess you ever?
No, I'm not. I would never say I was possessed at this point, but I've had stuff follow me home. I've had stuff try to attach to me. And, when I had that cancer, I had the worst year of my life when I first found out I had that cancer in my leg. And I went through a really nasty divorce. I went almost financially ruined. And then some other stuff happened, and it was almost a whole year of just crazy stuff, off the wall stuff going on in my life. And I went and got cleansed by 3 different clergy people, a priest, a Baptist minister, and a shaman. And overnight, almost everything turned around and got back to normal for me. And that's when I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, something had followed me home from that place and tried to really mess my whole life up, and tried to almost, in my opinion, it gave me cancer, So, I'm telling you right now, it's not all, what you see on TV. It can be dangerous. You put yourself in situations at trying to find answers to this puzzle, and if you're in one of those, even if you're in your own personal life and you think of, everything's negative all the time and you live in a negative environment, that's going to affect your health. And when you put yourself in a negative location, such as I did for so long, and it was so heavy and so negative, that it will and can affect you, I'm here to tell you.
Well, yeah, and a lot of times you hear, even just stress is toxic for your body. It's hard for your body to process it. And for this outside entity that's negative, it's got to be horrible for you as well.
Right, and you're in a place where all this negative energy is, possible deaths occurred, negative type, murders, suicides, whatever the case, and that energy stains the very walls and ground that location sets on, and it's just permeated with this negative energy, and it bombards you, constantly if you're living in it. So, you got to be really careful when you're doing this kind of stuff, and I'm just telling you from experience. I know it can and does happen.
We have Dale in the SOR Space Travelers, and he's asking, is he a Vietnam vet, Agent Orange? Which you're not. You're newer generation.
Well, I'm not that old, man.
Right.
I was a Gulf War era veteran. I went in '93, right after the Gulf War, and I got out in 2001. I'm a Kosovo War veteran. I was in Kosovo.
And it's funny, back in the old days, my grandma Nova, she actually, her and my grandpa Rex used Agent Orange in their garden. I guess it had something in it that helped with weeds and such. She ended up getting lung cancer. She never smoked a cigarette in her life. She was a lifelong member of the LDS Church. But using Agent Orange in the garden or whatever they used it for, like, why the heck would you use that unless you're in war? She was in the Canadian Air Force, but she was never in the field. She was always like one of the phone ladies that would work the switchboard.
Well, that's what Agent Orange was. It was to kill jungle growth during the Vietnam War. You know, they would spray it out of the airplane, and it would basically kill everything living, all living vegetation it touched. It was highly toxic stuff. My dad was in a NOM and all that. You know, he had a real bad case of that stuff, and it messed him up really bad. And his skin, you know, was different colors and stuff from it. Like, he had these big red splotches, and it was from Agent Orange, man.
Oh,
so,
goodness.
you know, yeah, you know, so that's, you know, that's a whole different realm there. But, you know, that stuff was bad stuff.
Yeah, really bad. And a lot of people didn't realize, even Roundup, people are getting cancer from that. I just saw that on TV the other day. If you ever use Roundup and you have this sort of cancer, call us now and we'll put you on our list of people that are waiting for payment from this company. It's crazy all the things we use in our everyday lives that can cause cancer, cause you to get sick.
Oh, yeah.
So, you were telling that story about your Bigfoot story. Was that featured on a paranormal show? I'm pretty sure I saw that where it had...
Yeah.
The boy and his grandpa, and they were fishing, and he told the boy to get in the truck, and then he was shooting at the Bigfoot.
Yeah, that was me on there.
Oh,
yeah, that
that's
me.
awesome.
Yeah, it was on a show called Terror in the Woods on Destination America, and then almost a year later, they changed the name of it and put it on Travel Channel under These Woods Are Haunted. So it's actually on 2 channels. You can catch it every now and then. It pops up on there on the reruns, but... yeah, I've been doing a lot of TV filming lately. You'll see me on several different channels coming up this year, doing some investigating, and the new show, Paranormal 911, I tell an account when I was active duty law enforcement that I had with a dead guy. And in a hospital. It's a pretty crazy thing that happened. And it's in my new book that's coming out any day now called Real West Virginia Hauntings, Volume 1. I'm doing a whole series of books. And that whole book project came about because I've done so many investigations here in the state of West Virginia, my home state, where I was born. It's going to have, the series will have at least one account from every single county in the state that I've actually done investigations in. It'll have some stories, residential stories in it, and just other haunted and notorious locations here in the state of West Virginia. And there's probably enough to do 5 books on there that I'll be putting out over the next few years on that. And then I got some other projects coming out, the Willows Weep House that I have in Indiana. Got a lot of stuff going on with it. We're doing a big event there, June 21st and 22nd. Me, John Zaffis, the Haunted Collector, and David Weatherly. Friday night, you can come and ghost hunt with us at the house, at the Willows Weep House. Only 20 tickets will be available for that. And you will get, if you buy the VIP ticket, which is $125, you get Friday night ghost hunt with us 3 at the house, and then you get all day speaking events on Saturday. And we got a really good lineup there. We have me, Weatherly, the Haunted Collector himself, Zaffis, and the original Paris Sisters out of Indiana, and our good friend Barry Gaunt, who's a Kentucky Truth Seeker. All will be speaking on Saturday, and we'll have vendors there and a whole bunch of fun stuff to do. And you can take a tour of the house on Saturday and check it out. You'll never see another house like this house. It's crazy.
Yeah. Our team is Four Corners Paranormal Investigations, and just this last Monday, Jeff from Travel Channel contacted us and was like, Ghost Adventures is going to be out there in your area. Give me a call back and I'll talk to you about this project. So that was pretty exciting. And then we also have a production company out of California looking at our team because of all the evidence that we've gotten with different equipment. You know, we have our puck and all this other stuff that shows the humidity and temperature change and all sorts of other things, and then being touched. Have you ever been touched by a spirit?
Oh yeah, I've been attacked numerous times over the years. I have pictures on my website, but I just redesigned my website. I haven't put them back up yet. I've been scratched. I had a knot put on my head with a cut. Something smacked me in the head, and I was bleeding. Scratched numerous times. I had a blood vessel in my eye pop one time at an investigation that was really crazy. And, you know, when you realize these things are strong enough to punch through the living world from their world and physically touch you and actually hurt you, it's pretty unnerving. And you realize, hey, this is very dangerous. You know, this stuff is real. It will come out there and really put a hurting on you. You know, and it can, and I've seen it over and over from many different people that I've known over the years, and myself included.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting what you bring back, and sometimes it's when you least expect it. Generally, when I pull up to a house, I'll get certain feelings and know what I'm dealing with, but I went by myself to a cleansing right up the road from me, and this house was in the backyard of an old Catholic church, and I didn't get anything off of it when I pulled up. I didn't sense anything. Went in there, still didn't feel anything, and I had a cleansing kit which has all kinds of things in it. Frankincense, blessed cedar, sage, Palo Santo, all kinds of things in there. And I'm showing her how to use it, how to sage her house, and the intent and the things she's supposed to say. Being that I'm in the sage smoke the whole time, I didn't protect myself going in. I didn't do anything going out. And later that night, I had a possession. On another account, I got scratched. Do you use holy water or any other sort of means to get rid of these things?
If it would get to that point with me, I would immediately go see clergy. You know, if I feel a place is negative, you know, I always say a prayer of protection before I go into any place. Number one, I've learned that the hard way over the years. And I also, when I leave, you know, I will say a few prayers that I use specifically when I leave, and I will use holy water and even sage to cleanse myself and my vehicle and my equipment, because, you know, these things can attach to just about anything, you know, that has an energy source to it of some sort. And, you know, like I said, I have been followed before. So, you know, it's just better to be safe than sorry. And you can use, as long as it has good intentions, like whatever you're using, it doesn't matter what your religion is. If it's good intent and you use it with good intent, anything negative does not like that. And, you know, if you're into shamanic rituals and beliefs, or if you're, you know, a Catholic or whatever your belief is, use those things, use those tools to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because they do work.
That case did teach me to never go on a job compromise, because I got so excited the night before, I couldn't sleep. I got up, I was really tired, I went by myself, and I think being compromised is what led me to not taking these steps that I generally do, saying the prayer of protection before I go in, cleansing and praying when I go out, and it actually possessed me that night. I had another case where I went up to a house where a friend of my daughter's was murdered by his own dad, and I'm outside smoking on my front porch, and my 2-year-old daughter at the time comes out because she, for some reason, just had to be with me, which she never did before. And all of a sudden we hear this growl from the driveway, and I look over there and I look down, and she's looking over there too. And I was like, "Did you hear that?" And she's like, "Yeah, it was just Hercules. It was just Hercules out there." And I'm like, "No, he's in the backyard. Come on, let's go in the house." And I start going through my emails, and all of a sudden I feel this burning on my side, and I'm thinking it was a spider off the porch or something crawled up under my shirt and bit me. So I'm looking, and that's when I received the first scratches ever I had gotten. And it was 2 scratches. I think the third one landed on my pant line. So I sprayed holy water on it, and it went away instantly. And then 2 days later, it came back again and scratched me again, this time leaving a mark of 3. Sprayed the holy water on there, and it's weird how it made me feel. It made me feel like I was high on some drug or something. Did you get that effect when you got scratched?
Well, yeah, I mean, the time when I had the knot put on my head and I was bleeding, but I didn't, it was weird. It didn't start bleeding until a little bit later on. But first of all, the whole thing transpired at a old haunted brothel owned by the Chicago mob. And a friend of mine, Weatherly, was doing a spirit box session, and I was filming him. And I went in there to set down a piece of equipment next to him, because I was behind the camera filming him while he was running the session. And as I bent over and set this piece of equipment down, I felt this force just hit me like a Mack truck, it went right through me. It was really cold, and I stumbled backwards, and I was really dizzy and disoriented. And he said, "What happened?" Because you got the spirit, the hack shack running, and it's pretty loud, so he didn't hear any noise or anything. He just saw me kind of stumble, and he was like, "You don't look right, man. You better go sit down." So I sat down behind the camera, and he's just happened to ask, he said, "What'd you do today?" And this really growly voice came out and said, "I hit him." Ha, 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 like that. and he said, "What'd you hit him with?" And he said, the same exact voice said, "A shovel."
Oh, geez.
And we were like, "What?" And we were like, "What?" And it so happened, at the time I was law enforcement, so, and we were in a brothel owned by the mob, so it's only obvious that mobsters would hate any kind of law enforcement, so he attacked me. These things are intelligent. They know what you are. They know what you do, and long story short, it got so negative on the ghost box, and I was feeling so rough, he shut down the session, and we went downstairs. And there was a bunch of people there because we had a charity event that earlier that night, and we were upstairs investigating upstairs where all the rooms were. And the other people were downstairs watching a live feed we had set up so they could watch what we were doing. And we went down there, and when I sat down, and I felt really yucky, man. I felt like my energy was drained, and I felt this tickling sensation on my head. And I put my hand up there, and lo and behold, I had a big knot on my head, and I felt this wetness, and I pulled my fingers out, and I was bleeding. And I'm like, holy shit, the thing really did hit me with the shovel or whatever it was, and I'm bleeding. I got a knot on my head. And, it was just like, it was so unnerving because, it really, shows you what can happen. And we stayed in this place for 5 days, man. It was active from the minute we walked in till we left. The next day, we were downstairs. Everybody had left. It was just me and him for the rest of the remainder of the time. We had 4 more days in this place. And he was running the same ghost box, and we were downstairs in the dining room area. And that same voice started coming through, and he called himself Ian. And, he was kind of giving it down the road for attacking me. He goes, "Why'd you attack him? He didn't do anything to you," that kind of thing. And this thing said, something to the effect of, "You be quiet or I'm going to slice you." And within minutes, my buddy, he's like, "My back is burning like fire, dude." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he had a long sleeve thermal shirt on with a T-shirt over top of that tucked into his pants with a belt on. And he's on camera the whole time, right? So I said, "Well, let's pull up your shirt and see what's going, if there's something happening." And we pulled up his shirt, and he has got these 3 gigantic scratch marks going from the top of his left shoulder all the way down past his belt loops into his pants. And they're just about to bleed. So this thing, again, was strong enough to attack him the next night and scratch the living shit out of him, And
just to tell you, we can't say the SH word and stuff.
Sorry.
No worries. I just had to tell you.
It's really bad. And I can't help, I get excited and amped up when I tell these experiences because they're just crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And so, within a few minutes, he became violently ill. He had to go outside. He was gagging and throwing up and stuff. And it's just, a crazy, crazy location that there's something negative there that has a lot of force and has enough juju to come through and physically attack people. And we learned later that the prior caretaker was into doing spells and conjuring negative spirits, demons, whatever you want to call it, whatever your personal preference is. But, he had done a lot of spells in that location. And whatever it was had a lot of juice behind it.
Yeah, for sure. We had a case where at some point I went outside because one of our members disappeared, and I went to check on her, and she had gone out to grab some sage out of the car, and when she was out there, she said there was this really tall black entity that, like, ran at her, and she ran and got in the vehicle, and they started to cleanse her, and as they were doing that, I started feeling really, really nauseous, like something was trying to attach to me, and I was like, go ahead and cleanse me, too. It's weird how it'll go from one person to the other. It's just trying to affect you because you're trying to help, and that's the last thing it wants, and so it attacks you.
Absolutely. That's what they do, and especially, you know, shadow beings, shadow people, whatever name you want to use for them, most of the time they are negative in nature, and they will attack, and they do attack, and they will feed off of your energy. Anybody's energy they can feed off of, they will do it.
That's definitely true. And we're going to go to break here in about 30 minutes. And we had someone asking, where can they find your books?
You can find the West Virginia Bigfoot book on Amazon, or if you want a signed copy, you can PayPal me at topshooter1569@gmail.com, and make sure you put your mailing address, and I'll send you a signed copy.
Awesome. I want one. On that note, we got to go to our first commercial break. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, we own the night.
Hey, guess what? You can now get your brand new Spaced Out Radio swag at spacedoutradio.com. We've brought the store back with all new items for you to pick out and pick up for yourself, your family, or friends. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, we got it all. All you have to do is head to our website and click on Store. Choose what you want and it's shipped to you. The Spaced Out Radio store is right there for you. Come shop with us at spacedoutradio.com. Then we can own the night together.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com. If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR. At the corner of Nelson and Granville, the Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You can follow Tessa on Twitter at TessaTNT, on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, back to Spaced Out Weekend host, Tessa Nicole Thomas.
Hear the sound again, voices dancing in my head,
Hey guys, welcome back and thanks so much for joining us this evening. Today we are joined by Mr. Dave Spinks from West Virginia. Welcome back, Dave. It's so great to have you.
Hey, thanks. I'm enjoying the show.
Me too. And it's so great to hear your stories. I love hearing other people's paranormal investigations and paranormal happenings, you know, because growing up, like your grandpa was saying, don't tell anybody because then they're going to think you're crazy. And for my family, it was kind of normal, you know. And then when I'd make friends and I start to tell them my stories, they'd like shun me and think I was crazy and not talk to me anymore. Did you ever have that issue as a kid, or you just kind of kept everything to yourself?
Well, back in the days when I started doing this, you know, quite a few years ago, and then, you know, depending where you live, you know, around here it's the Bible Belt, and you just don't talk about these things. People think you're messing with demons or whatnot, you know, and it's not, you know, that's so far not true with the case. You're just, you know, you're just trying to find out what the heck it is. But many people, you know, these type of subjects are taboo because they're just, people are scared of the unknown, man. They fear it with everything in them. They don't want to talk about it because they feel that if you talk about it, it's going to bring it upon themselves, you know. And, you know, to me, that's the opposite of the case. You know, you need to talk about things. You need to discuss them because knowledge is power in my point of view. And the more you know, the better off you are, because you may have to fight things off at some point. You never know. So if you know a little bit about it, at least you have somewhere to start, you know. Because, you know, I don't care who you are. Somebody you know, either yourself, someone you know, a friend or a family member, has had something crazy happen. They've seen something, and, you know, most of them just shrug it off as, oh, it was explainable because of this or this or this. But in reality, they can explain it, and they're scared to death of it. And how many people do you know that, especially like skeptics and stuff, I don't believe in none of that stuff, but this one time I was doing this and this happened. How many people that have said something like that? Almost everybody. So, the paranormal's real. It's out there. There's things out there we just don't understand. But, we're trying to make strides. We're trying to find out pieces to some of that puzzle.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that. My Aunt Vicky, she's in Boston, Arkansas, and she's really close friends with my mom, and my mom was very gifted. She could see spirits, hear spirits. She'd go and smoke and talk to them in the cemetery and everything, and so I figured my Aunt Vicky would be excited about what I'm doing with my paranormal team and, how we're helping people, and I told her, how I say the St. Michael prayer and do all these other things, and she's like, well, I don't know why God would even help you because you're messing with demons. There's no ghosts. They're all demons. And I'm just like, that's just ignorance to me, because even in the Bible, Jesus says, it is me, I am not a ghost. He didn't say, it is me, I'm not a demon. Ghosts do exist. We're spirit individuals having human experiences. And to think that there aren't spirits or ghosts out there, to me, is ignorant because of all the things I've experienced through my life up to the point that I did start doing this for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had many debates with religious folks, and I say, hey, one thing I posed to them, and I asked them, I said, what's the greatest ghost story ever told? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, the resurrection of Jesus, the Holy Ghost, then that kind of stumps them. They're like, wait, yeah, that makes sense, so, and if you look at certain, depending on what faith you are and what Bible you use, the Bible talks about UFOs. Many religious paintings show UFOs in the background.
They do.
I mean, there's just too much stuff going on to just simply shrug it off as, they weren't. People back in those days, they drew and painted what they saw. That's the only means they knew how to describe what they saw. You can go back to ancient Native American cave art, and there's pictures of UFOs and strange creatures all over the place.
Have you seen the Kachina dolls? Like, those are actual dolls made in the impression of aliens. Like, these aren't certain gods or anything. These are aliens that visited the natives.
Yeah, they're the star people. They even call them that. That's where many tribes say they came from, the stars, and Native American tradition, that is all oral and passed down orally. They don't have any written history. It's passed down generation to generation, and that's how they keep it going. And there is ancient art painted on caves and rocks all over the Southwest, the West, and even in caves here on the East Coast they've been found. So, you got to take that and really take a hard look at it because it's real. They drew what they saw.
Yeah, and it is. Like, they don't just... Yes, of course, they're creative people, but they don't just make things up and carve it into a wall or whatever. Even with the Mayan pyramids, they showed Stegosaurus on there because they were actually still around, and they saw these things. How did they depict them on their pyramids without actually seeing them? They didn't make this up. We know they exist. They were actually still around after they said that dinosaurs didn't exist anymore. They did.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of instances around the world like that. There's giant skeletons that have been found all over North America, and almost immediately when the reports would go into the newspapers and people start talking about them, government agents would come out. They would confiscate these giant skeletons. Some had 2 rows of teeth that were made to eat flesh, and some of these things were 8, 10, 12 feet tall, and they just mysteriously disappeared. No one ever knew what happened to them. And now there's a lot of scuttlebutt going around that some people from the Smithsonian that work deep within the vaults have come out and said, yeah, those skeletons are real. They have them hidden because they're covering up things. And they're trying to write their own, the governments of the world have tried to erase certain things in history so they can control people and, you know, and make people believe one thing instead of the truth that's really out there.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that they teach in school are BS. It's not really the real reality that's out there. And like you're talking about giants, I was reading not too long ago about this guy who had gone out, and I think he was in Nevada and California, and he found this hole that went underground, and he kept following it, and then he came to this tomb where he found these giant skeletons, and he found all these different artifacts, and brought some of them out, brought out gold and such that he had found. And then tried to get back, and he couldn't find it again. Kind of like the portal changed its position. He couldn't get back there again. But it's interesting when we are able to find these things and find this reality, and it really does piss me off when it comes to disclosure of keeping things from us as far as aliens and giants and whatnot. Like, do you really have to keep us small-minded? Isn't it better for us to know more? But like you're saying, it's kind of a control tactic.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of theories on the reasoning behind that, but the bottom line is, you know, and this is kind of my mantra, you know, some of the thing I go by, you know, some of man's greatest questions are, what happens to us when we die? Are there unknown creatures walking among us? And are we alone in the universe? And for me, you know, all those things are real and true. And yes, you know, when we die, I don't think we're simply dead. I think our energy transforms and goes somewhere else, whether it's being reincarnated or whether it's up in heaven, whatever your belief system is. I don't think we're just dead. We're made of, humans are made of pure energy. You know, we have our own electromagnetic field that is disrupted when there's solar storms, and high EMF, you know, affects people drastically, makes them hallucinate and all kinds of things. And mathematically, it's almost an impossibility that there's not other intelligent beings in our universe. They are finding new Goldilocks planets almost monthly. You know, that magic zone between the sun and the area that you know, is habitable for humanoid types or creatures to survive, where it's not too cold, not too hot. I mean, they're finding them all over the place, you know. And then you have to take into account the thousands and thousands of reports of strange creatures people have seen. Not everybody's crazy. Now, whether these things are the missing link between man and ape or whatever the case, depending on what creature you're talking about, are they coming from other dimensions? They've already proven scientifically that there are other dimensions. They've proven it. So are these things, have they figured out a way to punch a hole into our dimension and come through and go back into theirs? You know, what's going on here? You know?
Yeah, I actually watched a video on Netflix not too long ago where it shows a black hole, and they're talking about how the black hole sucks everything in and nothing's able to escape it. But all of a sudden you see these lights like shooting out of this black hole, and it's kind of like the aliens are using this as a portal from one dimension to the other. And like you're saying, there are other planets out there that are like our Earth that can inhabit life. The closest one I know of is like 4 light years away from us, which is a long ways, but still they have the technology to travel this far. I've actually gotten pictures of UFOs from my very own backyard. And I saw an alien orb in my backyard. I didn't get a picture of that because I was just freaking out. It was so close to me, and I was like trying to, you know, finagle my phone to get it to open and work and go to the photo portion of it. But instead I called my family over. I'm like, you guys got to see this, because I didn't want to be the only one to see it, because then I'd feel like I'm crazy. But to my 2 daughters, it looked the same. It was like a round ball with liquid fire in it, which was yellow and orange and red. To my husband, it looked like an overgrown bat flapping its wings at a very slow rate of speed. So it's funny how it looked different to him than it did to me and my daughters. But you hear about these alien orbs or Foo Fighters or whatever you call them all the time. You know, since a long time ago, back in, what was it, World War I or II?
World War II.
Yeah,
World War II. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things out there. I mean, the realm of possibilities is endless when it comes to the paranormal and supernatural fields. You know, it's just it fascinates me, and it's why I do what I do. it still blows my mind to this day when I can walk into a location with a recorder and say I'm the only guy in there, and I ask a question and I get an intelligent response from someone else, a female or a male, whatever the case may be, answering my question. How the heck do you explain that? You can't.
Well, yeah, and it does. Do you find comfort in it? Because I do. I find comfort in the fact that there is life after death, and I've experienced it. I've seen it with my own two eyes, you know. There is life after death. You're not just in a hole 6 feet under, rotting and being eaten by bugs, you know. Your spirit, you can... I think the reason why there are so many spirits that we do encounter, it's not because they decided to stay here. Judgment Day hasn't happened yet, so they're not allowed to go into heaven yet. It's when Judgment Day happens, then they'll go to heaven. But otherwise, they can go wherever they want, whenever they want, and be able to do certain things. That's kind of the message I got from my mom, as far as she can go wherever she wants, when she wants, and she really loves her life after death. But yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. It's not because, you know, they outran the Reaper or whatever, and they're able to be here and they're kind of stuck, and, you know, you hear all these theories, if they're stuck here, then they'll become anxious or angry spirits. I don't think that's true. I think you can be where you want, when you want, and if you decide to live at this place until Judgment Day does happen, then that's what's going to happen. Not trying to be religious or holy roller or whatnot, but that kind of makes sense to me. You know, the gates aren't open to you until Judgment Day, until everyone is judged and able to pass through. Perhaps that's why we see all these spirits. We actually released a spirit from the railroad station. We got her whole story from a ghost app. She said Walter intention death, sharp tool, yada yada yada. We gave these words to the museum curator, and he went and did his homework. He found out this lady's name was Kate Johnson. All along they were calling her Emmy, which there is a spirit there named Emmy, but she's a little girl. But Kate was, they called it a soiled dove back in the day. She was a prostitute, and very well kept one. As she fell in love with a firefighter, he snuck her onto the train to elope. The brakeman, being that she was a working girl, had been with her too, so a fight ensued. The firefighter was stabbed to death by the brakeman, and then Kate blamed herself for his death. Had she not been there, it wouldn't have happened. She moved from Colorado to California to try to move on with her life, and ended up taking her own life by ingesting muriatic acid. Then she was stuck on that train car because she believed in purgatory, basically, is where she was. Purgatory. She was stuck at the place that caused her to take her own life. And of all things, a Catholic school class came in and said a prayer of release from purgatory, which there was a Catholic in here not too long ago that said that didn't exist. I've talked to other Catholics that said that prayer does exist, but they said a prayer of release from purgatory. She was released, and she was gone. I went in there about a week after that had happened, and the museum curator was like, I think she's gone, and he's really sad about it because he was really attached to her. Will you go back there and check and see if she's still there? And I went, and I'm like, she's not there anymore. She's gone. But she did come back 3 months later to protect the little girl Emmy from the brakeman that is also there, and we have a picture of him on our website. But yeah, it's interesting and that's the main thing, is finding their story, finding out how to help them, and helping them to move on if they want to, or to find peace in some sort of way, or find justice for them, which is so hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in your, like I said, it's all in your belief system and what you believe, and that's the beauty of all of this. There's no right or wrong way, and whatever your intent is, as long as it's good, then good things can happen and whatnot. And nobody knows the answers to this stuff. Anyone that calls himself an expert, in my opinion, is full of it, because there is no experts in the unknown.
I totally agree.
And whether we're supposed to know answers to this, who knows? I don't think we necessarily are. We get little bits and pieces of it sometimes. We see things that aren't normal, or we are lucky enough to get a recording of an EVP recording of a possible spirit, or we're lucky to capture something on film, on video, or still pictures. We get little bits and pieces. Whether we're supposed to get any of that, I don't know. Whether we're going to get any more than that, I don't know. But I think as technology advances, it's going to help the field to possibly capture more just eyebrow-raising evidence of showing folks, hey, there's stuff out there, man, and we're capturing it now. And we have been capturing it for a number of years. So a lot of teams out there have captured some phenomenal pictures and video clips. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, you got all these people who are trying to be famous and get on TV and all this stuff, and they're faking stuff. So it gives all of us that are trying to do this for real a black eye in the field. Then you have the whole TV genre, you know, it's a double-edged sword where it helps the paranormal because it brings it into the mainstream more and people are interested in it and more willing to talk about it. But then on the flip side, most of the stuff you see on TV is a bunch of BS. It's all actors. These people, you know, I tell folks, you got to remember, the stuff on TV is for entertainment. It's not really necessarily the real deal. You know, you got to remember, these folks are under contract for money, and they have to produce evidence. People that have been doing this for years and years and years, that have not been on TV, that are really have boots on the ground, who live this life for real, and who spend their own time and money to go out and investigate and research this stuff, those are the folks you want to pay attention to, because those folks are the real deal. I'm not saying they don't capture some good stuff on TV, because they do. But the people that have a body of work before they've ever been on TV, those are the people you want to pay attention to, because those are the people that have put the time, effort, and their own money into researching and investigating this stuff for many, many years. And, you know, they are the real deal, in my opinion, not this stuff you see on TV. If you look at a lot of these folks on TV, their backgrounds are, they have IMDb accounts, they're actors before they ever did anything in the paranormal, and that should tell you all you need to know right there. Right.
Yeah, I see that all the time. Ghost Adventures is a big thing with my kids, and I actually was contacted by them this last week for a project they're going to do out here, and they probably just want locations, and will probably be rid of me after that and not even say my team's name or anything on the air, or even have us on there while they're doing their investigation. But the way he overreacts, anytime somebody has something happen to them, all of a sudden it's happening to him, and he just totally overacts things. Like, I like Aaron, I liked Nick when he was on, but Zach really bugs me because he goes above and beyond to try to portray this certain person or these certain things happening. And like you're saying, he's probably got this thing in acting that he did before this whole thing happened. And
I'm not here to bash on any specific person. I'm just telling folks that, hey, remember, TV is entertainment. They have to make ratings and they have to produce evidence. That's the bottom line of it. Now, with that being said, there is stuff they do capture. You know, that is legit, and you know, it is what it is. It's a double-edged sword. You know, there's going to be dramatics involved because it's TV. You know, they have to produce results. So you know.
And they have caught some really good stuff, like EVPs and different things like that, or orbs or different things happening, and it's been really, really awesome. Like, I enjoy watching it with my kids. It's kind of like family time together, and they take after me. Like, my mom...
The thing I really like about Ghost Adventures is they do put actual, you know, investigators and team members on there to tell their accounts. Very few other shows do that. You know, They you know, Ghost Adventures has always been good about having people on that, you know, that are also investigators that don't get the TV exposure, and they even include some people in their investigations, which I really like, and I think that's a good thing, and that is, you know, they should keep doing that because they're I mean, let's face it, they're the most successful show in the paranormal, and they've been on for years and years now, and they've got
like 18 seasons now.
Yeah, and you know, they've actually caught some phenomenal stuff on that show. I mean, honestly, they have. And like I said, you know, just remember, it's for entertainment. Not everything you see is real, and you're not going to, if you're an aspiring investigator, okay, if you're just a beginner and you say, hey, I can do that because I watch TV, that's not how it is, guys. You're not going to go in a place for an hour and get all this phenomenal evidence. You could
takes
spend
hours
days
and
in there.
hours and hours. Yeah,
you
days.
could spend days in there and get one thing if you're lucky. You know, it's just not how it works. And not everything you capture is paranormal. You have to, you know, the thing I like to do is, you know, if I'm in a location and I say I have 2 or 3 devices set up, say I'm using a millimeter. I'm going to give you an example of something that this is what I try to do to just start to begin to say it may be paranormal. Say I got a millimeter, which is, you know, has an EMF device on it, tells you if the EMF is fluctuating. And I like to use the ATDD model that has the REM function on the back, has a temperature sensor and an EMF meter. And if you got that going off in, say, a REM pod, and then you're actually capturing, say, EVPs at the time, and you've got all these devices going off, then you have to say, hey, okay, let's put all this together. You know, something's definitely going on here. The temperature is fluctuating. We've got an EMF fluctuation going on, and we're capturing EVPs. Then you can say, holy crap, not only do we have one thing, but we got 3 things telling us there's something out of the normal going on here. So that's the way you kind of, in a nutshell, you know, when you're doing an investigation, that's what you got to look for. You know, you may be running a ghost box at the same time, and you're getting factual responses on the ghost box to what you're asking, along with devices going off, temperature fluctuations or EMF fluctuations or both. You know, put all that together, then you can begin to say, hey, there's something not of the ordinary going on here. And that's what you got to kind of do when you're investigating. And if you're brand new, you're not going to go, and I'm not trying to burst anyone's bubble, but you're not going to go into a location for an hour and get all this phenomenal paranormal evidence. It's just not going to happen. You may get lucky and capture an EVP or 2 or something of that effect, but, you know, odds are, you know, don't get disappointed, don't get discouraged, but get with a team that's been doing it for a while, who has experienced members, and just watch and listen and learn. Don't run your mouth. Don't think you know everything, because you don't.
Yeah, leave the ego at home and go out with an open and pure heart and wanting to help. We've actually captured a lot of amazing stuff, and like you're saying, it just doesn't happen all of a sudden. Sometimes it does, and you'll get one thing after the other, not even expecting it. But it does take time, and somebody was telling my teammate, Jamie, if you guys went on air, you'd get shut down immediately because this and this and that and that, because they've watched our live broadcasts that we've done, and, you know, things don't happen the way they do on TV, and they do a lot of editing and cutting to make it so entertaining. You don't get the whole full picture of what's actually going on and all the work that goes into it. You get all the good stuff.
Yeah. And they actually sometimes they cut really good evidence that they've captured because they need more entertainment value or more drama put into the show to make it more entertaining. And I've talked to I have numerous friends that have been on TV and whatnot, and you know, they said they go in on the edit versions and they cut out some of the best evidence they've ever captured because these producers and TV people don't think it's entertaining enough, not understanding that, hey, that's what we're doing this for. You know, we're trying to capture evidence. So it is what it is, you know, in the TV world of the paranormal. Just remember, folks, it's entertainment. It's for entertainment. And, you know, just watch. I like to watch for the locations they go to. You know, maybe they've gone somewhere I haven't been and I want to go check that out. And you know, there's different reasons people watch it, but it's fascinating stuff. And I'm glad that TV is really amped up on the paranormal shows because, you know, it shows people what people like myself and many, many others out there do. You know, we go and we try to capture evidence of paranormal happenings all around the country and the world.
Yeah, and not only helping the spirits, but helping people trying to deal with it, because there is not a lot of help out there for people. And for us to be able to go out there and help people is really quite a blessing for them.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about these teams going into people's homes, if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me throw out some pet peeves here. All right. Well, you know, like I said earlier, good intent is everything, okay? If you're trying to help folks, that's all fine and dandy. But if you don't know what you're doing, please, by all means, do not go into a house and you say you capture a growly voice or something and tell people that it's a demon in their house, because you simply don't know that, okay?
Right.
You're going into, these teams are going into people's house. You know, even if you get scratched doesn't mean it's a demon, okay? there's certain factors that have to be met for it to even be considered some type of demonic entity haunting a house or a person.
Well, spirits do that too to scare you. They'll scratch you and do other things to get your attention. It doesn't mean it's a demon.
Right, and there's a lot of that going on, and there's actual demonologists in the field that I know out there that are, this stuff is just driving them crazy, and they're creating so much chaos in some of these poor people's lives by telling them there's demons in your house and everything else, that they can't even go in and do their job realistically to try to help these folks because it's so polluted with their nonsense that they've told these people, that there's demons in their house and all this crap. And it makes the real demonologist jobs and priest jobs just 100 times harder, and it's a bad thing that's going on throughout the whole field right now, because, and if you relate it right back to TV, it's because all these shows are concentrating on everything's a damn demon, and that's just the farthest from the truth it could be. A real demonic haunting or possession is very few and far between, even though there's been a rise in that recently over the last several years of real, possibly demonic infestations and stuff. These teams going in telling everybody there's a damn demon is just, oh my God, it's causing havoc. And then in another aspect of it, I'm a firm believer if stuff is put out there to an extent that it can actually manifest. Okay. So, if you're concentrating on nothing but demonic and negative stuff, you can possibly cause that to actually manifest. Mm-hmm. There's been numerous cases. There's a whole realm of it called a tulpa, and Slender Man is one of them. After the whole Slender Man, Slender Man's a tulpa. So, there was a whole internet fakery that went on, but so many people thought that was real. And now tens of thousands of people have claimed to have seen this Slender Man all around the world, and is that a tulpa that manifested from all these people, believing that thing was real, and now it's real? I mean, that's one of the aspects of the paranormal that we're looking into about these tulpas, and that goes way back in history. My good buddy Weatherly is a pretty much an expert on tulpas and all that genre, and the guy's a freaking wealth of knowledge when it comes to that kind of stuff, and he filled me in on some stuff that just blew my mind, because he studied shamanism and then to Tibet and everything else, and the stuff that those guys talk about is just mind-blowing, and it's real. A lot of this stuff is real, so you got to be, like I said, it's one of those things that you have to tread lightly on. You can't just run into a house and tell these poor people that are experiencing these paranormal phenomena going on that it's a demon, because you just don't know. And if you're not qualified to even go to that route, don't go to it. If it's above your head and you don't know what you're doing and you're scared shitless and you're scaring these people, I said a bad word, I'm sorry. If you're doing that kind of thing, you're really causing havoc, and you just call someone in, call clergy in, get out of it, and try to help the folks with someone that's more knowledgeable and in that realm other than yourself.
Yeah, and like you said, it's like very few and far between. And when we do encounter that with our team, we'll call in the clergy, because we're not experienced with that. And I'd rather not deal with it. The last thing I need to do is bring a demon home to my family, which, not only am I gifted, my kids are gifted, and we get it from my mom. And so it's kind of like a beacon, and we have spirits coming in and out all the time, ripping rooms apart and doing different random things. Like, we even hear kids running and playing in the living room when the kids are all asleep.
Right.
Different random crazy things. Yeah, different random crazy things happen because it's like a beacon. Once one knows that you can hear and see and talk to them, then all of them know, and they all want to come in and get help. And it's kind of like a psychiatric ward or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary for the kids, and I try to explain to them, like, we're all going to be spirits someday, so don't be afraid, It's the unknown that scares them, and they don't understand it, and they see all these different things on TV and whatnot. And I try to explain it to them to where they won't be so afraid, but it's really hard to get rid of that fear. But when it comes to demons, like I said, it's very few and far between. A lot of them are just spirits trying to get attention or showing aggression. I had a girl call me just a couple weeks ago and saying her hair had been pulled and slammed in the door and she'd been scratched and all this other stuff. A week or two before that, her and her brother and her mom went to a cemetery. Well, I think something came back from the cemetery with them and started attacking her. I didn't feel in any way it was demonic. I just felt like it was a spirit trying to gain her attention and get help. And so I gave her pointers. I haven't heard from her since. I was like, if it gets any worse or anything after you do this staging and all these other things, let me know. I haven't heard anything back from her. So hopefully she's got that under control, because it takes the owner of the house or the alpha of the house to be able to go through and put their foot down and say, this is my home, not yours, get out, or help the spirit in some way or another.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways you can run with it. You know, you hear all these accounts of people, you know, they buy an old house and they got to remodel it, it needs work, so they start remodeling. And then whammo, you know, bam, there's all kind of paranormal activity going on. Well, that could be a spirit that's still in their house, doesn't know they're dead, and they're pissed off because they're wondering what the heck you're doing in their house and you're tearing it up, you know, or they see you and you can't see them and they're like, why are you tearing my house up? There's so many different ways you can run with it, you know, and try to figure out, okay, why is this havoc going on here? We bought this place and we're trying to fix it up, and you know, you're an intruder in there and you don't even know it because there's a spirit of someone that used to live in that house and own it, you know, and they're really upset because you're changing their house. You know, there's so many different ways, and you hear all these different accounts, such as people buying a place and going in and remodeling it, or, you know, there's just some a-hole that, you know, he was an a-hole when he was alive and he's an a-hole when he's dead, you know, and he just, he's 30 feet long, you know, so, you know, there's so many different aspects, and you've got to try to figure out what is actually going on with this particular spirit or whatever, and try to, you know, do what you do to let them know, like you said, you know, this is my place now, you got to go, you know, go to where you got to go. And and then, you know, if you're dealing with an entity, that's a whole nother ballgame. You know, it's a non-human spirit. It's, you know, and it could be really nasty. So, you know, you got to educate yourselves. If you're new in the paranormal, it's not everything's a demon, like we said. And, you know, read, learn, educate yourself. You know, get with teams that know, have been around a while, and learn the difference between the two, because it's very important.
It's so true. And like you're saying, when you go in and you're trying to remodel and the spirit's just like, what are you doing to my house? And it's kind of like that movie I watched not too long ago where these people thought that these people were ghosts, but they were actually the ghosts. And, you know, it's kind of gives you a perspective of what they might be feeling or sensing or seeing. Like, these are spirits coming in and trying to destroy, and they're actually the spirits. But I've heard accounts of where people are trying to do demolition and trying to rebuild on a house or upgrade it, and their tools go missing, things get lost, all kinds of things go missing, and they're like, where did it go? And they look everywhere, and then they find it in a crawl space or an attic space or wherever they haven't been yet. It's pretty interesting, and once you do start doing this demolition or rebuilding on a house, that's when the spirits really kick up, because they're like, hey, what the heck's going on here, right? It's just like interesting and crazy at the same time.
Yeah, and there's so many different stories out there from numerous people about that. You know, they bought a house, they're remodeling it, whatever, or not even the case, they just move into a house, and then all of a sudden all this strange stuff starts happening, you know, and they're wondering why, what's going on. And that's, you know, that's a lot of the types of stuff you'll run into when you're, you know, investigating these homes. You know, people want answers. They don't understand what's going on. And hopefully you can go in there, kind of put their mind at ease a little bit, and then try to, you know, get with them if you know what you're doing, and try to do some different techniques to try to get the energy to go away, you know, and say, hey, this is our house now. You got to go, you know. And like you said, I'm a firm believer. Or at least let them know what you're doing. Yeah, let them know what you're doing. You know, hey, we got to fix this, got to upgrade it, whatever. And I'm a firm believer myself that some spirits may not know they're dead because they died so instantly when they were in their body that they don't know. You know, they can see you. They don't understand why you can't see them. They're like, hey, what are you doing in my house? Or whatever the case may be. You know, and a lot of that's true with soldiers, you know, that have died in battle. You know, a lot of them guys died instantly. You know, their head was taken off by a cannonball or whatever, and they don't even know they're dead. They're still wandering around trying to figure out what's going on. They still think they're in the war, you know, or whatever the case. And you'll run into a lot of that on battlefields and stuff like that, you know. So, you know, there's so many, you know where you're at, know what took place there, research, do the history, and figure out, hey, what the history is of this particular location, this house, and go from there, you know, because there's a lot of work that's done. You know, the bulk of your work in the paranormal is done in researching. You know, it's not done in investigating. It's done in researching and reviewing evidence, man. I mean, that's the bulk of your work, and it's very monotonous and very time-consuming.
It is. It's very time-consuming. The worst thing that I hate doing is going back over voice recordings because you have hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'm like, why don't I have a tech person for this, you know? But it's so important.
Do burst sessions. That's why I do burst sessions. I don't do long, drawn-out recordings because it's much easier to review. You know, you ask 3 or 4 or 5, 6 questions, and you stop the recording, and then you do another one, you know, and then do another one like that. Don't just drag it out and let recorders run. Now, you could do that if you want to sit there for hours upon hours and, you know, review audio. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine, but I prefer the burst method.
Yeah, I think the burst method might be better, but I'm afraid of missing something, you know? I'm like, I don't want to be listening to something and then something come through while I'm listening to something, so I just let it run. So I really need a tech guy or a tech girl or something to come in and take over all that shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of time consuming. You know, if you just let stuff record for hours upon hours, remember, you got to go through that. Then you got to go over it.
BTO in the chat room was asking, do you think that perhaps ghost spirits are interdimensionals or stuck in limbo, or rather, as Tessa mentioned, waiting for Judgment Day, and or simply want to remain on this earthly plane?
Well, there's a lot of different ways you can run with that. Like I said, I mean, it all depends on your background and your spiritual beliefs. You know, if you are a Christian and you follow the Bible, whatever version, you know, some people believe there's a purgatory that some spirits are stuck in. Some people think you either go to heaven or hell automatically and that's it. Some people think, you know, that you will be, everybody's in limbo until the second coming. You know, I mean, there's just so many different ways that you can run with that. As far as interdimensional, I don't necessarily believe a human spirit is interdimensional. That's a whole nother take, though, and it's definitely plausible, in my opinion. But, you know, if you subscribe to the possibility of time travel and interdimensional beings or ETs, then, you know, there's a lot of scuttlebutt going around right now of people having these so-called demonic experiences, but it's really ETs that are portraying themselves as demons to mess with people's minds. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's so many different things out there that you could literally spend a lifetime in one genre of the paranormal and focus on that and just do the research, you know, forever and ever, you know, and and interview people and and just do one particular genre of it, and you'll never finish. I mean, that's how vast it is, and so many different ways you can run with things.
There are so many different ways you can, and like you're saying, there's no experts in the field. And during the world's largest ghost hunt, which we've done for the last 3 years, it could be 4, I think it's 3 though, somebody came in last minute and was talking ish about the fact that we use a ghost app. Well, we use all kinds of different tools that, like you were saying earlier, I've gone broke buying these tools for my team, so we have tools to work with, even though we don't really need them because we have our intuition and such. But it's good to have tools to have, like I was saying, the scientific method as far as barometric pressure, humidity, temperature, all kinds of other things going on that you can record step by step. But using these apps, every tool that you get from a paranormal store tells you this is for entertainment purposes only. Just like with the app on your phone, entertainment purposes only, because there's no way to prove that it really works. So you take every tool that you can and use it and go by the biggest, like, basically all the combined information that you gain. The app doesn't work all the time, but it has worked a few times. So I'm not going to cast it aside and say, this doesn't work, because it has.
Personally, I'm not a big app guy because I know they have geotag locators in them. And, you know, like, say if you're standing in a graveyard and it starts rattling off names or says tombstone, headstone, you know, make sure you turn off the location on those, and then anything you get will be a little bit more legit than when you have the geo locator on, you know, when you allow it to tell where your location is. Turn that off. So, you know, the thing with apps is, and I'm a firm believer that the spirits can use just about anything they want to use to communicate that has energy coming off of it, you know, a battery, if you will. They will suck your batteries dry to gain that energy in order to interact with you. I've seen it 100 times, 1,000 times, you know, brand new camera batteries, 4-hour batteries drain out, and then a whole burst of activity happens, and then the battery mysteriously goes back to full power. I mean, you know, you just never know what you're going to get with this, doing this stuff. Like I said earlier in the show, it can be dangerous, so make sure, you know, you use whatever protection you feel comfortable with. And, you know, use your own personal senses like you talked about. You know, when the hair on the back of your neck stands up, or on your arms, or your heart rate increases, you know, there may be some type of entity or spirit interacting with you at that time. Use your personal senses. I've been doing this long enough now where I can walk into a place and I can feel the energy, you know, like you can feel if it's heavy or if it's sad or if it's really negative in nature, you know. You can feel that stuff if you use your senses. Use them. They're, you know, you have them for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. And when you do get that hair-raising thing, there's a reason for it. There's something changing in your atmosphere. It's not because you're freaked out or scared. Like, there's an electric or static sort of energy going on in the area that is trying to produce an effect, whether it be words coming through one of your apps, or your antenna going off, or EMF raising, or EVP going on your recorder. Like, there's something going on. They're trying to gain energy from the atmosphere. They're trying to put that through in a certain way to communicate with you. And when you get that, it's just like the number one, you know, thing. Wow, the hairs on my arm is raising up, or the hair on the back of my neck, or whatever. You have to pay attention to that stuff. You can't just be ignorant to it. It's happening for a reason, and you got to pay attention to what's going on after that.
Absolutely, and if you start getting that, go right into an EVP session or something. You know, try to build off of that, what's going on, you know. See if you can garner some evidence based off of what you're feeling on your body, you know. Right then and there, you know, conduct an EVP session, turn on a ghost box, do something, and see if you can get more intelligent information from what's going on in the atmosphere around you. Because that may be, in fact, the only time you experience anything the entire time you're there. And another thing I'd like to say is you don't have to investigate at night, folks. The whole night thing came about from TV, okay? You don't have to do it at night. It's just creepier. You know, it's creepier. And, you know, the night vision cameras and the full spectrum cameras and all that, they do capture things that the human eye cannot see. They see in many different spectrums of light that the human eye does not see. And you can use them during the day too. You know, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be at night. You know, for example, I'll give you a prime example. Prisons, notoriously haunted locations. Some of the most notorious haunted locations ever are prisons, because so much death and destruction and despair occurs in prison that, you know, it stains that very ground and building with that energy. Well, in prisons, most of the activity takes place, 99.9% of the activity takes place during the day, okay? The inmates are out, they're doing their jobs or whatever the case may be. They eat during the day, and at night they're locked into their cells, okay? So all the stabbings and murders and whatever, rapes, whatever you want to, that all that stuff occurs in prison happens during the daytime. So some of the best evidence I've ever captured is daytime investigations of prison. And, you know, of course, they don't like me very much in prisons, and I've got some phenomenal stuff. but they don't like me because I'm prior law enforcement, you know. So,
right.
So you can imagine,
big.
you know, right. Yeah, oh yeah, man. They've called me pig and you name it, man. I mean, they're going to cut my head off and, you know, you name it, they've called me that in prisons, and I've got it on recording and whatnot. So, you know, and let's face it, and especially in the old days in the prison world, you know, it was brutal, and the guards would beat, you know, inmates to death and all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, that thankfully that doesn't happen that much these days. It does still happen. And, but, you know, those guys in there are, you know, there's some real sickos in there, and they kill other inmates and they do nasty stuff. And they are just, some of them, I've looked into their eyes, you know, when I worked in law enforcement, and you can tell there's not a human soul in there, man. I mean, they have no remorse about anything they've ever done, killing, you know, 20, 30 people, raping kids, whatever the case may be. Some of those people are, yeah, there's no souls in those people, man. It's like a hollow shell of a person.
And it makes me wonder, like, how did they come to be? And there are people out there like that. Like, where's your soul? Like, what happened to you? And some people, I guess, are born without one, or perhaps they sold it. You know, who knows what happened?
Or they're possessed by something very evil and negative in nature, and it totally controls them 100%. You know, and they are just not, their human soul is not in control. You know, and I've seen dudes in there, man, that have black eyes, just like you would think in a movie a demon would have.
Yeah, on Supernatural.
Yeah, it's really spooky, man. I mean, you know, a lot of those guys are into Satanism and negative type of religious practices, and they exist solely to commit evil deeds, man. They are demonic puppets, as I call them. You know, and that's a real thing.
Yeah, and it's so scary when you get a hold of a person like that. You're just like, holy shnikes, where did this come from?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're out there, man. They're out there. And look at, like, Richard Ramirez, you know, the Night Stalker and all those guys, you know.
Charlie Manson.
Yeah, there's so many of them, these killers and stuff, that have no remorse, you know, about taking life. They you know, to me, that's, you know, they have no soul.
It's crazy how that happens, and maybe it's a progression of what they've gone through in life, and step by step by step they've lost their soul, or perhaps they've made a trade on the crossroads, or perhaps they weren't born with one. Like, I've known kids that are just purely evil, and you're like, just like, where did this kid come from? Did this kid come from the pits of hell or what? Like, I don't know. It's crazy when that stuff happens.
There's a lot of cases that I've talked to people about too that say these women are, you know, pregnant or whatever, or they're messing with witchcraft and all this, and they become pregnant. And almost in a high percentage of the cases, they often lose the baby. And is that because they are messing with certain types of witchcraft and the baby is taken from them? You know, and all these, there's just several weird cases I've looked into and talked to, and friends that were working on that this has happened to. And it's pretty scary stuff when you think about it.
Yeah, I was worried because when I was pregnant with my last child, she's 3 years old now. She'll be April 24th. I was hoping for a 420 baby, but she was born the 24th. And I went on an investigation. I was really worried about doing it because there are negative spirits out there. They can affect your health. They can affect your child and different things. She's come out quite great. She's actually talked to me about a past life she had. I caught her with a lanyard, tying it around her leg, and I was like, Sissy, why are you doing that? Don't do that. You're going to make your leg numb. And she's like, I got to tie my leg off or I'm going to bleed out. And then she was talking about, you remember when I was older and I was a man and I had blonde hair and I wore glasses and I was a nurse, and she was in the military. And that's where the thing, you know, tying it around her leg, I think in her past life, she had gotten shot in an artery in her leg and she was trying to tie it off, and otherwise she would have bled out. And I think that's the way she died in the past. And it really
those cases fascinate me. Those cases fascinate me. There's a bunch of kids. There was a show about that, and there was these kids that were in the Oklahoma City bombing, And several of them had described themselves, even told their parents their names and described how they were blown up in that building. And they were now other people. And there's no way that those kids could have known any of that. You know,
yeah, my scalp is like crawling right now.
Yeah, and, you know, there's a whole bunch of cases around the world like that, and those are fascinating to me, you know. And there was one kid that on that show that was talking about he was a famous actor, like in the vaudeville days and stuff, and he described who he was, what he did, and all this stuff, and they looked it up, and he was spot on. There's no way he could have known any of that, you know. And this kid was like 5, 6 years old, and he picked out a picture of himself in a book and said, that was me, you know, that was me right there. And he was telling them all about this stuff, and they looked it up, and it was all true. I mean, it was nuts, and he even described how he died and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, what does that tell you? You know, is that coincidence? I think not.
No, you can't make this stuff up, and it's amazing how fact is truly more amazing than fiction, and all these things that come about, like the kid that was telling how he was murdered and actually located his own body in the past life, and they actually found the body. It was pretty astounding and amazing how he did that, and he was only, what, like 10 or 11 years old. That was pretty amazing. But on that note, we have to go to our second break. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after these messages.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is Watching.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Sit back, relax, grab a drink, and listen closely. Spaced Out Radio continues through the weekend. From the mile-high mountains of Colorado to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Weekend with Tessa N Thomas I.
All right, so we're back with Dave Spinks, and we're discussing the paranormal and beyond. Welcome back, Dave. So great to have you.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Great time. I love talk. I could talk about this stuff all night with you guys.
Me too. I could stay up for days talking about this stuff. But you were wanting to talk about ghost boxes.
Yeah, there's a lot of, in the field, there's a lot of people that down ghost boxes and spirit boxes, but I'm here to tell you one thing that I know for a fact, and that these things do work. Just like we were talking about earlier when I cussed, you can't cuss on the radio because it's against FCC regulations. And when you're using a spirit box and you have something coming through the box calling you every name in the book and, F this and F that and da-da-da-da and cussing you out, you know that that's real because if that happens, that radio station could get fined and shut down. You know that's real. And when you're asking them questions and it's giving you relevant, factual stuff like cussing you out, using your name and everything else, that's real. Spirits can use whatever they want for the most part to communicate with you and interact with you. So don't down every, piece of equipment that you just because you don't like it or think it doesn't work, because they can and will use that equipment.
Yeah, and we've actually had that happen on here with Bill Hauser being on the show, and he's got all these ghost boxes. He's got an amazing collection of unique individual ghost boxes, and he'll come on for ghost box sessions, and we do get the F word come through and different things like that, and that's when you know it's for real, because people can't say that on the radio, so you know it's actually a spirit coming through and being irritated or aggravated and saying certain things that you can't say on live radio.
Right. I mean, that's one aspect of it. You got to take a hard look at that, And if it was a human like me, like if I made a mistake and I said a cuss word on the radio, I apologize right away. And the ghost box will not do that. They'll be like, they'll keep on trucking with it, cussing you out even more. And you gotta look at that and take a hard look at that kind of stuff. It's real. They do work. They use that energy, that white noise that those boxes were specifically created for, and they use that energy and come through. And then, sometimes spirits will even mimic your voice. I've had it happen to me, and I've seen it happen to other people. They will sound just like you and mimic you. And there is also a thing called doppelgangers that will imitate you and cause havoc in your life.
I've had one of those in my house.
Yeah, and I have too. And I was actually gone on an investigation, and my wife was in the house, and she saw me wearing a red shirt actually it was her brother had come over, and she was in another room, and he saw me walk through in a red shirt. Number one, I don't wear red. I just don't like it. I think it's a bad luck color for me. And number two, he saw me go into the back bedroom, and she was in another part of the house, and then she came out, and he said, "Where'd David go?" And she goes, "What are you talking about? He's not here. He's out of town." And he goes, "I just saw him walk through the back bedroom." And she's like, "What?" And he described me wearing a red, polo shirt and all this stuff. And it was nuts, man. So, I've heard numerous instances of that, and that's a kind of freaky. And usually when a doppelganger comes around, it's not a good sign. It's kind of an omen of bad things to come.
Yeah, like your life is going to be taken and this thing is going to take over. The first time it showed up at my house, I was playing poker in the living room with my roommates, and my daughter Nova, she was probably 5 or 6 at the time, and she was outside playing in the tree fort. We have these really old ancient pine trees that form a fort in the backyard, and it's the coolest place in the summer as far as temperature. And so she's back there playing, and she said, I came out, I was in a white dress, and I walked her out to the tree fort, and then I pushed her down, and I ran away, and I locked the door, and I was laughing. She came in, I was wearing my tank top and my shorts, and she's like, "Why did you push me down, and why aren't you wearing that white dress anymore?" I'm like, "I was not wearing a white dress. I've been in here playing poker. I don't know what you're talking about." My brother... Okay, so when my mom was killed by a drunk driver, me and my younger brother went with our dad. Our 3 older siblings went with their dad because my mother had been married twice. They went with their father. We went with ours. And I hadn't seen my brother in over 30 years. So I bought him a ticket because had I not, he's a workaholic. He would not come. So I bought him a ticket, gave him no choice. He came out. He went to bed early and came out, and he's like, "Hey sis, what'd you want? Why'd you wake me up?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've been out here watching TV the whole time." "Well, you just came in there and you said, 'Gary, wake up, wake up. You gotta wake up.'" And we had gone out for Mexican food and margaritas that night. I don't know if he's about to aspirate on his vomit or whatever was going on, but this entity woke him up in my form and told him to wake up, that I needed him. And I was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't do that." And so he looked at me like I was full of ish, and then went outside, smoked a cigarette, came back in, and went to bed. so I started to worry, like, is something trying to take over my life? Oh, she was actually seen doing dishes. Had she been doing that, like, I would have kept her around. But they're like, they've seen her doing different things and portraying different realms, and it made me think my life was going to end. I always thought that we had a curse on our family for the females. Once you reach the age of 33, your life is going to be taken, because that's what happened to my mom. My sister was almost taken then, and my life was almost taken then. We were lucky to beat it. I think my mom was kind of pulling for us on the other side, but yeah, it was very interesting and intriguing. And when you hear about a doppelganger, it generally means your life is going to be taken and that doppelganger is going to take over. What are your thoughts on that?
I just, know from my research and stuff, it's usually a bad omen of things to come. But, how they play out in the end, depends on many different factors. But, usually you try to do cleansing and whatnot and stuff like that. But, yeah, a lot of these instances I've researched and talked about with folks that claim to have had these things in their homes. And there has been deaths that have occurred, after seeing these things in their homes. And but other ones, there was no deaths. Maybe some bad things happen, like a heart attack or whatnot. But there's different. Like I said, there's so many unknowns in this field. I mean, we're just trying to research as much as possible and find some of those answers to these things. It's creepy stuff. There's some creepy factors to it. Like I said, the whole kids talking about their past lives, that fascinates me, and it's mind blowing. And you talk about people that have these recurring dreams and whatnot. I used to have a recurring dream when I was a kid that it was always in color, and I had this up until I was about 12 years old, and I haven't had it since, but I can still remember the dream vividly because I had it so many times. It was in color, and I was a young boy hiding in these bushes, and the village I lived in was being raided by these Napoleonic soldiers, and they were raping women, killing all the men, and burning the village to the ground. And I knew if they found me that I'd be dead, And that's all the dream was. When their marching was like thunderous. There were so many of them. They were marching around, and I was hiding in these bushes, and that's all I remember of the dream. And I would wake up every time sweating and freaking out, And was that a past life I had? I don't know, but it was awful. And I could smell burning flesh and the burning of the buildings, and it was so vivid and real. I don't know what it was, but it was, and I've had many of my friends, man, you need to do a past life regression and all that. I said, no, I don't want to. Because if it was that traumatic, I don't want to relive that. The dream was enough. I still remember the dream to this day. And, if that's, maybe that's some kind of past life I had, I don't know. But, I don't even want to delve into it, because if it was that negative and tragic, why would I, it is what it is. So, and I've talked to many people that had, similar things like that, And then I would also have a dream where I was falling. Like, it felt like I was falling for so long, falling and falling and falling. I don't know what, is that, what the heck was that? I don't know. But, all of it to me is interconnected some way. Everything is interconnected, and it's fascinating stuff, just to talk about it with folks and hear other folks' experiences and research and investigate this stuff, because you never know. One of these times you might just have something so significant and so earth-shattering happen that you might be the lucky one to record it, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's interesting because I used to have a recurring dream where I'm on a crane that is carrying an iron beam, and we're building this really tall skyscraper. And it's moving over towards the building that we're building. All of a sudden, the wind blows, and I fall down on the skyscraper, and it blows some more violently, and then I fall. And I see the cars and the people below. They're really tiny, and I fall and fall and fall until right before the crack of the sidewalk. And right before I hit the crack of the sidewalk, I wake up. And that happened repeatedly. So I often wondered, was that a past life memory? Was I a construction worker working on the this building, and I died by falling off of an iron beam. And I thought that was crazy, but I'm now working on a site that I'm doing security for buildings being built. And these construction workers are crazy. Like, they'll jump from the building onto these wooden plats that are being held up by a crane, and it'll topple back and forth, and it'll keep its ground. But if it had fallen, these guys would probably perish or be injured severely. So this could be a past life, or it could be the fact that my life was kind of in the throes of, not feeling stable. And so that's why I was having this dream. So there's two different theories. It could be a past life. It could be the way my life was at that point when my mother died, and I was kind of taken off kilter. And I had a lady that I had on the show saying, I'll do a past life regression for you, but I'm the same as you. Like, I don't want somebody walking through my mind and opening doorways I don't want opened, and do I really want to know what the answer is to this? I'm kind of confident and happy where I am right now, and I don't think I want to open that door, because who knows what that's going to cause.
Right, you never know. So it goes back to what I say, be careful what you ask for, because you might just get it. Sometimes it's just better to leave things alone, but, it all depends on what you want, what you're seeking in life, and, and each individual is different, and we all got to make our own conscious decisions about those type of things, and it may help you, it may hurt you, you never know.
Yeah, it's interesting to say the least, and a lot of people do it. My mentor, she did a past life regression, but I'm just not comfortable with people walking through my mind. I don't want anybody to knock something over or break something in there, I'm not comfortable with it. So when you were overseas and you're doing these different tours during Desert Storm and whatnot, did you experience anything over there as far as jinns or any other paranormal experiences in the eastern realm?
I wasn't in Desert Storm. I came in right after Desert Storm in '93, and it was over in '91. So, but I was in the desert a few times. I didn't experience any kind of crazy stuff like that. I heard scuttlebutt. I heard stories, about things happening to some guys and stuff like that. But I was never able to interview them or confirm any of it. But you would hear stuff around from other military members and stuff. A patrol was on there and they were seeing what they thought were soldiers, and they were shooting at them, and they just disappeared, and all kinds of different stuff like that. But you hear rumors and stuff like that, but unless you actually get to interview the guys that happen to or anything, it's just it's all hearsay. And that's the same with anything in the paranormal, And there's stories over there in Afghanistan of special forces units fighting giants. It's crazy stuff. And and that was recently. That wasn't too long ago that this came out about this special forces unit. They were fighting. They were in some cave areas, and this giant red-headed giant came out. This big red-headed giant creature, and actually killed a few of the guys as they were fighting it. Is there truth to that? I don't know. Obviously, Obviously, that would be something kept very top secret if anything like that. Happened, and but those kind of stories are fascinating just to hear them. And then you hear, there was a show, I forget what it was, but it was about a Marine unit that had taken over this hill. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was a crazy story, and almost all the guys in that unit are dead now except for one or two.
Yeah, it was creepy AF.
And they all died in mysterious circumstances, weird stuff, and
they were all seeing things.
Yeah, they were shooting at them and everything, and they were hearing gunfire that wasn't, was like a residual event, and there was Russian soldier bones on this hill and all kinds of stuff they dug up. So, crazy stuff, man, and there's a lot of stuff out there like that.
Yeah, it's insane. And even over here in Southwest Colorado, we have, in the past, French and Spanish wars, and there's still residuals from that. And even Native American wars with American soldiers or Spaniard soldiers or French soldiers. Like, there's so many residual things that keep replaying, and there are intelligent things that come out of it, but for the most part, it is residual. But it's so real to the person experiencing it. Like you're saying, those guys on the hill, it was so real to them. They saw this person with their night vision. They saw this stuff happening. They're shooting at it. It's shooting back. It's not hitting them, but then they end up dying anyways from certain things happening. It's amazing how it can physically affect a person. And people think, oh, well, it's just a spirit. It's not going to hurt me. It can't affect me. It really, really can. And that's where you got to be careful with it and protect yourself.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, there's all these strange mysteries surrounding all this stuff. And you hear all these stories. And, you know, like I said, if you're interested in it, research it. Try to interview people that were involved in it. You know, you never know what you might uncover. You know, that's part of the whole fascination of it for me. And is trying to get to the bottom of some of this stuff. You know, is it paranormal in nature, or is it just circumstantial stuff that could happen to anyone? But you got to take all the factors into account, you know, and really delve deep into it and find those answers, you know. And some of those times, man, you'll uncover some stuff that's just mind-blowing. So I'd like to talk about my house in Indiana, Willows Weep. You know, this is a house that is fascinating, guys. I took it over because there's nothing else like it that I've ever come across in my 30-plus years of investigating. Number one, the house is built in the shape of a cross. Number two, it's set in front of a crossroads. Number three, the whole area around this place is Native American, goes back to the mound builders. And there's two rivers that intersect very near the house. There's a huge aquifer under the house. And here's the kicker. There's been 7 confirmed factual deaths in the house and 3 suicides. Okay? And it's all documented. It's all real. 2 of the one suicide was by hanging, one was by an overdose, and the other one was the guy shot him. The last man to live in the house shot himself in the head. His chair that they found him in a week later is still in the house with his blood all over it.
Yeah, that'll keep a spirit around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've got recordings of gunshots, all kinds of stuff, you know. So not only that, but there was the guy that built the house, through neighbors and other people that the prior owner talked to, one of the older ladies. Her parents knew the guy that built the house because she was really old and she died a couple of years ago. And, you know, her being really old, and then her parents were so old enough to where they knew the guy that the original family that built the house. And he was into some strange stuff, man. This house, like I said, is built in the shape of a cross. It once had 4 entrances and exits to the house. And in the house, when the former owner, when she first bought it, she met the guy that killed himself's son at the house. She doesn't remember how she even came to this little town and got the house, found the house. She just was drawn to it somehow and ended up there and ended up calling the guy, and he met her out there. Well, she thought it was very strange because he wouldn't go in the house. And he just opened the door and said, go ahead and look around and decide if you want it, let me know. And he stood outside the whole time. Well, come to find out, his dad had committed suicide in the house, right? So as her and her son, she was looking for a cheap house for her son to buy and help him start his life off. As they're in the house, there was some wood stacked up against the wall, and it was like 10 feet away from her. And it flew across the room and smashed her son right in the head, hurting him. This is the first time they ever walked into this place. So the price is right, and they thought that was just coincidence, and they ended up buying this house. Well, in the original house plans, there was a staircase, and when they went in the house, there was no staircase to be found, and they started kind of digging around, and they found a false ceiling in the house. And they tore that false ceiling out looking for this staircase. Well, there was no staircase to be found. But what they uncovered was 4 points that were built into the structure, all pointing to the center of the cross in the middle of this house, right? Mm-hmm. And it was built into the structure out of plaster. So not only do you have a house built in the shape of a cross, you got these weird 4 points that were hidden in the ceiling, a false ceiling that pointed to the, if you picture a cross in your mind, the direct center of the cross, you know, where the 4 arms meet in the middle, that's where these things pointed to. So, and there's so many different aspects of this house, we don't even have time to talk about them all, but during more renovations, the last guy that lived there had put in a laminate floor over the original floor. Well, the laminate floor had got moisture and it was kind of buckled up some, so they decided to they were going to tear that new laminate floor up and restore the old 1800s floor, right? So as they're digging this new floor up in the corner, they find this book buried between the new floor and the old floor. And on the front of the book, it says, "Is the spirit world real?" And I've got the book, and it has an upside-down pentagram on it. And when you look through this book, it has all these references of how to communicate with the dead, how to summon the dead, necromancy, all this weird stuff. But here's the kicker. The kicker is it was put out by some weird sect of the Church of God in the 80s. Okay? I don't know any Christian church that would put a book in print that has an upside-down pentagram on it and talk about how to communicate with dead or necromancy and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. It's really weird. It's like a cult. I did some research on this group, and it's some kind of weird cult organization that portrays themselves as Christian, and I don't think they are Christian at all. So you got that aspect of the house, okay? So that tells me that way back in the 1800s, this house was built to funnel in energy in and out of it. And not only that, there was weird stuff being practiced there all throughout the times, all the way up into the 80s and who knows when. So, and then you factor in it's got all these deaths in the house. The original owner, his wife died in the house. He died in the bathtub because after his wife died, he became this weird hermit type of character, and he lived in this little tiny bathroom in the house. And they found him dead in the little bathtub. He slept in the bathtub. So that tells me there was probably something going on in the house, and that's the only place he felt safe at, right? So then later on, his son moves in, and his son had been married before, and this new wife he had was married before, and they both had kids from previous marriages, and then they had their own kid. And it come to find out he was molesting his stepdaughter and actually had gotten her pregnant. Well, he got in trouble, because it was still looked upon bad in those days, but not as bad as it is today. Right. And they took him to court. And he was fined $700, which was a ton of money back in those days. But that's all they gave him. Basically, they fined him and let him go about his business. Well, one day he was in the back. This used to be a really big property. It was a farm and everything. He was in the back. He went out to feed the hogs. Well, he didn't come back. So they sent one of the older daughters to find him. And they found him being eaten alive in the hog pen by his own hogs. She freaked out, of course. Yeah, it's like this crazy karma thing that came back to get this guy. So they went back, got help. They drug him into the house. His guts were hanging out. The pigs had eaten off his testicles. His guts were hanging out. They ate off one of his ankles and his ear and all this crazy stuff. And he bled out in the house. So he died in the house too, which that energy stayed in this house as well. And there's a lot of missing years, but I've talked to several people. This other family had moved. This guy's grandma had lived there at one time. And, in the old days, they didn't have a kitchen. They had a summer kitchen that was outside, and the rest of it, they cooked right on the wood stove in the house. And his grandma, he would tell me stories. His grandma would set the table every night, because that's what the old timers did. The wife would set the table for the next day, Well, they would wake up in the morning, and the dishes and everything would be all scattered on the floor and everything. And the old rocking chair in the house would rock on its own. He saw that with his own eyes many times. So you have that, and then over the years, the lady next door told the prior owner that this woman had moved in, and she had a young daughter and an older son. And she had 3 previous husbands that died mysteriously, not necessarily in the house, but it was thought that she was some kind of black widow, and she would marry these guys and kill them for insurance money. Well, one day her daughter just came up missing, and nobody ever knew what happened to this little girl. I think she was like 7 or 8 years old. maybe even 5, between 5 and 8, we'll say. That's what the guesstimation is. And nobody ever found out what happened to her. Well, sometime later, the old woman told the prior owner that her son hung himself in between the main room of the house and the long arm of the cross, which would be the bottom of the cross, and they found him hanging in there. Well, just remember that part about the little girl, because I'm going to get to that in a minute. So they never found this little girl, and the woman moved away, and nobody ever knew what happened to her. She went by a weird nickname, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, she disappeared, right? So years on, this other couple had moved into the house, a man and a wife named Cheryl and Curtis. Well, one day, Cheryl was found dead in the house of an OD. Now, they said she died at the hospital, but you and I can know you're not legally dead until a doctor declares you dead. So they declared her dead at the hospital, but the neighbor, who ended up being the former owner's new husband after she met him there after she bought the house, said that he was good friends with them for many, many years, and that he saw them wheel her out of the house dead. She was dead. They weren't even working on her or anything. So she died in the house. Then several years later, her distraught husband is the last guy to live in the house, and he shot himself in the house. And he shot himself in the bathroom, stumbled around because it didn't kill him immediately. He fell into his favorite chair where he found him a week later, and that's the chair in the house with his blood all over it. So, moving forward to Brenda, the former owner, she bought the house. She hired a local guy as a maintenance man to help her fix up the house, right? So I've already told you some of the stuff that happened to her son and her and all that stuff. They found the book and all that. Well, she had sent this maintenance guy under the house to check the pipes. And when he got under there, he found these weird mounds of dirt. And he had to move the dirt out of his way to get to the section of pipe he was looking at. So as he pushed the dirt away, a bone popped out of the pile of dirt, and he grabbed it and looked at it, and he's like, holy crap, that looks like a human bone. And then according to him, something sexually assaulted him under the house. And he crawled out of there as fast as he could, and it's a really small crawl space. I've been in it. And he jumped out of there, handed the bone to Brenda, and said, I'm never going under that house again, and he hauled ass home. And she took the bone to her local doctor, and he examined it, right? And he said, well, it's definitely a child's arm bone, but it looks really old to me. And, she said, well, what do we do about it? I guess he supposedly called the local sheriffs and told them what had happened. And they said, well, we'll take your word for it. If it looks really old, then either get rid of it or throw it away. So what the heck's under the house here? Did they build the house on a graveyard, or is it that little girl's skeleton under the house that somebody killed? I don't know. And her son hung himself, so maybe he knew what happened, and in his guilt, he hung himself, So that's some of the aspects of the house. And to top it off, when he crawled under there to look at the pipes, he found right under the center of the house this strange fire pit looking thing that was dug out in the dirt in the crawl space, and it's lined with limestone rock around it like a fire pit, and it has ashes in it. Now, this crawl space is only like 3 feet high at the most, maybe 2.5. You have to crawl on your hands and knees, a grown man, to get to it. So, I had to confirm all this stuff when I took over the house, and I crawled under there, and sure enough, there's that under the house. I didn't dig for any bones yet, but that's coming in the future. So you've got all that, and as she was working on the house, and she actually met the guy next door, and they ended up getting married, and they used to have parties at the house. Behind the house, there's a really big metal building with a cement floor, and they would grill out and everything, and many, many people would see the curtains opening in the house, like something was looking out when nobody was in the house. It had been locked up. Another really bizarre and freaky story is her little 3-year-old niece. They were having a party over there and grilling out and everything, and the little girl was waving, looking up, pointing at the house. And they're like, who are you waving at, honey? And she said, that little girl in the window. And they're looking up there, and they're saying, what little girl? We don't see no little girl. And then she's like, that one right there. Then a few minutes later, she starts screaming bloody murder, and they run over there and say, what's wrong, honey? What's wrong? And she goes, that little girl came down and bit me on my face.
Oh, jeez.
within a few seconds, a human bite mark showed up right on her little niece's face. And that's just some of the instances that's going on here at this crazy place. There's also a graveyard directly catty corner to the house across the crossroads. And they would say, when they had all this paranormal stuff going on, they started having teams in trying to figure out what was going on there. And whenever someone was newly, freshly buried in that cemetery, they would get their names on the ghost boxes and on recorders. And it was like this house was like built to funnel spirit energy in and out of, and it's really creepy. I've never seen anything like it. I had an insurance friend of mine who's been doing insurance claims for 40 plus years and been in thousands of buildings and houses, and said, dude, I've never seen any house constructed like this ever. So, it's a fascinating place. There's a lot more to come on it. And me and Weatherly are doing a book on it. It'll be out later this fall. You can read about it on my website, on Willow's Week page. And, a lot of cool stuff coming from this place. I'm using it for my own paranormal lab, so to speak. And, right now doing a lot of research on the house, the area, trying to find out more resonance, more stories of paranormal activity in it. And I literally just touched on the tip of the iceberg with it. There's a lot more accounts from people. People have been attacked in the house. I've got videos of the doors inside the houses slamming on their own. One of them slammed so violently that the insides of the door shattered like toothpicks. And Brenda, the former owner, put big, heavy rocks in front of it to keep them from slamming. And I've got video of the doors shutting by themselves with those rocks in front of them. And she put balls, that was happening so frequently that she started putting those big plastic balls like you buy at Walmart and stuff, children's balls in the house. Mm-hmm. And I've got videos of those things rolling around and there's nobody in the house. She would lock the house up for months because they never lived in it. So much stuff happened. Her son or them refused to even live in it. They just bought it and they had to figure out what was going on with it. So they started having investigators come in. And then she ended up marrying the guy next door and they lived in that house. But she said stuff would happen at their house too. It would follow them over there. Her husband, and the real kicker for her, what did her in with getting rid of the place, was her husband actually was working on the house one day and he had a stroke. And he passed out. He said he wasn't feeling good. He passed out. They took him to the hospital, and he had to have a pacemaker put in. Well, he got over that, and he kind of recovered really good from that. And he went back to the house to do some more work on it, and then he had a stroke. And she had been attacked several times in the house. She got punched so hard that by something unseen in the house that she had to go to the hospital, and it bruised her kidney and her liver.
Jeez.
And all these just crazy accounts, And she's a no fuss, no muss type of woman. She's not going to make up this stuff or anything of that sense. And then I've got numerous accounts from other paranormal investigators that have been attacked in the house, scratched. And then, it's called Willow's Week because there's a giant willow tree in the front yard, and that's sacred to Native Americans. And anyone that's ever tried to mess with that tree, clip it, trim it, anything, the maintenance guy was thrown off the lawnmower and broke his back on the front porch after he clipped a few branches off of that tree so he could mow. And then there's a whole nother account, but I'm not going to tell them all because I want folks to read the book, and it's just insane with accounts from numerous credible people all throughout the field. And really, I was really surprised that this house didn't have the attention that it's not known. And when she approached me, because I had investigated it several times, and she said, I feel you're like one of the only people that could handle this place and give the credit due to it because it's extremely haunted and negative. And she feels that it's pure evil in that house. Something has been conjured into that house, and there's an active portal, in my opinion, in that house that things come in and out of. And there's numerous deaths. I think the negative entity that's in that house has caused people to commit suicide in that house. So, needless to say, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on there, and it's being documented, and there's more to come from it.
That's really amazing and interesting.
And that's where we're having the event at on June 21st and 22nd. You know, if you want to come out and investigate this notorious place with me and Zappis and Weatherly, come on out. And, you know, it's not that well known, but it's known, and it's going to be more well known very soon. Trust me on that. So if you want to come out and investigate it with the Haunted Collector himself and me and Weatherly, come on out. Get your tickets on the Society of Supernatural website. It'll tell you how to go there and get tickets for that whole event Friday and Saturday. It's going to be one to remember. You know, you need to come out and check it out.
We had somebody talking about your teacher. Do you have a teacher or a mentor that helped you along the lines of what you're doing now with the paranormal?
Over the years, I became friends with many well-known people in the paranormal. You know, Zappis is one of them. Whenever I have questions, I go to him and Weatherly. Weatherly's a wealth of knowledge in many different aspects of the field. So both of those guys have been doing it for over 40 years. And, you know, I've been doing it long enough where I don't have that many questions. But if there's something that's bothering me and I don't feel I have a good grasp on, that's the guys I reach out to. You know, everybody can learn. It doesn't matter how long you have in any field or any job or whatever you want to call it. There's always room to learn. You know, and especially in the paranormal, nobody has all the answers. Nobody's an expert, so you pull from other people's experiences, and they fill you in on what they did or what they thought would work. And you got to, you know, it's kind of a trial and error type situation, you know, until something works, if that makes sense to you. And, you know, there's so many different ways you can run with all this stuff, so many unknowns. You know, it's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And, you know, like we were saying earlier, it's kind of like the unknown is something that we search for. What happens after life? What happens during death? You know, what are these spirits? Am I bat-ish crazy? You know, people think they're crazy because a lot of times somebody experiences something and nobody else is until finally they do, because then it kind of spreads like a virus to other people. It's intriguing and interesting to say the least. Have you experienced that where on an investigation, one person is experiencing all these things and another person really hasn't?
Oh,
as
absolutely.
far as the family goes?
Oh, yeah. Prime example of that, you know, I've been on many investigations where, you know, there'd be several of us in a room or whatever, and we're getting all this phenomenal stuff happening. And then Joe Blow or, you know, some girl or whoever it may be walks into the room and everything just stops. We call them energy killers, if that makes sense. You know, sometimes there's just certain people that the spirits don't like, or, you know, or vice versa. Sometimes there's people that the spirits will communicate and others they won't. For whatever reason, we don't know. But I've seen it happen many, many times over the years. And what the reason is, we don't know. But, you know, I think that spirits know if you're open-minded enough and you know that they're there and you're open to and willing to communicate with them, oftentimes they will communicate with you, you know. And I think some people are more open to it than others, and the spirits know that in some sense. And other ones they might just not like, you know. Or I've seen, you know, I might be with someone in a room and they're getting all kinds of stuff like you just said, and I'm not getting anything, which is fine, you know. Hey, I can sit there and document them getting it, you know. It's just you never know what you're going to get with this stuff. Or you could go to a location, like I'll give you a prime example of what happened to me. I've done Bobby Mackey's numerous times, okay? I think 5 times now. So the first time I went there, it was so-so, you know. Got a few interesting things and whatnot. The second time I went there, didn't get anything. I mean, it was dead. I mean, there was nothing going on. And I'm like thinking, okay, I don't know what the hype is about this place, but, you know, whatever. The third time I went was off the freaking chain. There was a can of chew sitting on the table about 30 feet away from us, and it was empty. And we were down in the basement area, you know, the so-called portal of hell, and we were over by the dressing rooms. And we were getting some good interactions with some equipment and flashlight stuff. Well, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear this ping, 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 ping sound. And we're like, what the frick was that? You know, we start turning on our flashlights, and we look over to our left, and there's that chew can that was sitting 30 feet to our right was thrown off the table at us. There was nobody else down there. We were all right there in a little group of people, 4 of us, filming and using equipment. And here, lo and behold, this chew can is right there. It was on camera. We got it on there. We didn't see the chew can fly through the air, but we filmed it all, and you heard it clearly on camera bouncing around down there. So, we jumped out of our boots because, you're all concentrating on what's going on at the moment. Then all of a sudden off to the right, and then you hear this bang, bang, bang sound, and the metal off the lid of it was hitting, the floor and bouncing around down there. So something had enough force to physically move an object and throw it towards us. So, and then the 4th and 5th time, same thing. I mean, we got some crazy, crazy stuff. And the last time I was there, it was so freaking cold. It was colder inside the building than it was outside. And it was like minus 15 inside the building.
Jeez.
We were frozen. And outside was like 10 degrees or something, and then inside was minus 15 because I turned on my temperature gauge, and I'm like, man, it's colder in here than it is outside. And to me, that's spirit activity causing it. Mm-hmm. Another prime location that happens at is Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which is like 30 minutes from my house, which I've done numerous investigations there. And I've been in there in the middle of the day in the summer, and it's 90-something degrees with 100% humidity. And you walk into this building, and you got to wear a jacket. It's so cold. And, there's thousands of people that died in that building, thousands upon thousands. And to me, that's a sure sign that there's spirit activity going on. When there's such a major temperature fluctuation like that, there's definitely something going on. And I've seen that happen in that place numerous times over my years there. Prime example, you just never know what you're going to get with this stuff, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's very interesting and intriguing, and, my dad used to tell me, be careful what you're doing because look what that got your mom, and I don't think that's the case. Just because we're trying to help spirits and people doesn't mean my life is going to end early. I think what I'm doing is a blessing to other people, and I should keep doing it because, like I said before, there's not a lot of help out there for things like this. And I think people do need help with this because they don't understand it, and they don't recognize it, and they need somebody to help them to understand it or to coexist with these spirits or whatever. If you want to get rid of it, that's okay. If you want to coexist, that's even better. But whatever, whatever you need as far as help, we're willing to give it, and there's not a lot of help out there, and we don't charge because I feel like if we charged, we're taking advantage of people, and that's the last thing I want to do.
Well, number one, you never charge people to help paranormally. That's a sure sign of a bunch of BS right there.
For sure.
Some people say it's okay to charge, and there's well-known people out there that do charge folks. I don't agree with it. I've seen a certain individual go and charge to do exorcisms on a house, and whatever he did didn't work. And then, the people are calling him, messaging him saying, hey, whatever you did didn't work. We need your help. And he said, well, he blames it on them and says, well, you didn't follow what I told you to do. So therefore it's your fault. If you want me to come back out, you got to pay my plane tickets and everything, all my expenses again. To me, that's just not right. You don't do that. And if you can't help them because of the money, then you put them in contact with another credible team in their area that can come out and try to help them, or you put them in contact with the clergy members. Go above your pay grade, so to speak, and get somebody in there that can help them. That's the bottom line, and that's the obligation you take on when you conduct residential investigation. You see the thing through until the end. Bottom line in the story, no ifs, ands, or buts. And that's the thing, there's so many people out there that think they know, nobody, and you got to be honest with these people. You don't have all the answers. You don't know if what you're going to do is going to work.
We're not experts. We're just trying.
Right. We're just trying to help them and be honest with them. Say, look, we can try this, this, and this, but I'm here to tell you, hey, it may not work, and we may have to try something else. This may go on for years. We don't know. You just don't know. And if you're not honest with that, you have no business in this field. You have no business going into people's homes and doing that. And, it's the bottom line is, it's the truth. Tell them the truth. be honest, say, I'm here to try to help you, but I'm here to tell you also, we don't know if this is going to work. You know, we might have to try this, and this, you know, and, you know, whatever. And you may knock it, you know, you may go in and do some stuff and it knocks it down for a while, but then it could come back stronger. You don't know, you know, and then you have to go to the next level and the next level. And you know, they may not ever get rid of it totally, you know. So, you know, there's no experts in this field. All you can do is try to help people, but just be honest with them. And don't, for God's sake, don't tell them their house is full of demons when you don't have no, you know, background in that and you don't know what the heck you're talking about, because you're just causing all kind of problems.
Yeah, and like I said before, demons are few and far between. Like, very rarely do you find a demon somewhere. When we do, we call clergy. Because I don't want to deal with that. Like, I'm into ghosts, I'm into other things. I don't want to deal with demons because I don't want to be possessed by one, because I've been possessed by spirits. For heck, if I'm going to be possessed by a demon, you know? And clergy knows how to deal with it. And have you heard that the new pope has actually had them translate possession scripts in order for people to be able to do possessions more readily?
Yeah, I've heard some scuttlebutt about that, but
and for you guys that don't know, scuttlebutt means rumor.
Yeah, sorry, I'm using military terminology, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, that's a, you know, catch-22. I think you should have proper training, and, you know, to me that may take years to complete something like that, you know, properly. But that's just me. But, you know, what do I know? I'm not an expert. So.
Well, it makes me think that demons are coming out more and more and possessing more and more, and so the new pope, being as open as he is, and this is like my favorite pope so far. He's done so many amazing things, and I'm not even Catholic, but I do appreciate what he's doing. But translating these things for so many people to be able to do possessions and such gives me an awesome feeling, like people can actually help. You don't have to learn Latin or learn these other things in order to do a possession. You can actually read it in your own language, and I'm not sure if it has the same effect, but still, like, to be able to translate it to different languages for people to use it, because so many different people are getting possessed because people are messing around with Ouija boards and other things and getting possessed by it. I mean, I saw a scary video where this girl was using a Ouija board with her friends, excuse me, and all of a sudden she's getting possessed and convulsing and basically dying in front of her friends, and they don't know what to do. So you just go back and take this from the Pope and take this thing to cast out a demon or whatnot. And
yeah, but see, in the way I'm looking at it is, you know, do you really want to even attempt that? Because if you don't live a clean life and if you're 100%, you know, sin free, are you even qualified to do something like that?
Well,
you know,
yeah, and nobody is sin-free, and the demon always tries to use that against somebody. Well, I know you did this, I know you did that, and trying to bring up all your dirt to cast you away from doing what you're doing. But as long as you have,
put yourself in a predicament, you know, you may be possessed yourself. So, you know, because if you have any wavering at whatsoever when you're trying to perform something like that, any weakness, it's going to get you. So you just need to remember that, you know. Don't think just because you can read some words and you're not 100% committed to it, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, but you have to have faith in yourself and not listen to these things the demon is saying. Well, I know you did this, I know you did that, I know you had these dirty thoughts, and you thought about this when you were watching this show, and so on and so forth. Like, everybody has sins in their life. Even Jesus did. Like, Jesus, like, knocked his friend off the roof of the barn and killed him and then resurrected him, and it was all okay after that.
I don't agree with it. I don't think anybody should be going into anyone's house and thinking they can conduct an exorcism just by reading.
No, leave it to the professionals. But when it comes to that last minute, you have to do this sort of thing. Like, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but at the same time, I would, like you're saying, leave it to clergy. People that are trained in this, people that have gone to years and years of school and given up their regular lives to join this
and they practice
other
their
life.
faith daily, all day long. It's not just, hey, I go to church once a week or whatever.
Right.
It's a stronger faith person that should be doing that, not just Joe Blow investigator, man. I mean, that's just opening yourself up for a whole world of hurt, in my view.
Yeah, like I said, I don't even want to mess with demons. I'd leave that for the clergy. They can handle that.
Yeah.
I'll do the other stuff.
And there is a mass shortage of exorcists around the world, and maybe that's the thought behind them trying to do something like that. I don't know. But, and there's other people that can perform. If you've had the training and stuff, you are supposedly, qualified to do those things and whatnot. But for me personally, no, I'm not going to attempt it. I can cleanse stuff and do some stuff, but I leave it mostly for myself, because I would feel horrible personally if I went in and said I could do this and then it backfired and the person gets worse or dies or anything to that extent. I don't want that on my conscience, man.
Well, yeah, or the demon goes from that person to you because you're not pure.
Right.
Nobody's wholly pure, even Catholics, priests, and nuns and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're not wholly pure. They're there for a reason, and they have their own sins in the past, which the demon will bring up, but still, they are living this pure life. They're trying to do good. Like the nuns are married to Jesus. The priest is doing his own thing, and I mean, they have this certain law that they abide by. We are kind of minions compared to them. But yeah, I always pass the buck to them. When it comes to demon stuff, I don't want to deal with it because I don't want to bring it home to my kids or my family. Like, I am not prepared for this.
Not many people out there, including many, many paranormal investigators, are not even qualified to say what a demon is. So, that's the thing. People think they're qualified to even go in and say it's a demon, and they're not. They're not. And they're going out there and they're saying this garbage, and they're terrifying these people, and people are selling their houses and all kind of crazy stuff, getting divorces and all this crazy stuff, all because these idiots are going into people's houses thinking there's a demon in there because they capture an EVP or whatever the case may be.
Or somebody gets scratched.
Yeah, and it's just ridiculous.
You got scratched. It's in a row of 3. It must be a demon. No, that's not the fact. It could be a spirit scratching you, making you think it's a demon, so you'll be afraid, and it can feed off of your energy. It necessarily
I don't
isn't
even
that.
like to use the word demon. It's not even, it's so irrelevant in the paranormal. It's relevant but irrelevant because people throw it around like it's, everything's a demon, and it's all because of TV, and it's just ridiculous. So it is what it is. Hopefully people will wake up and educate themselves more and see things for what they are, and not think can call themselves an investigator or whatnot just because they watch TV. And that seems to be the case these days, and it's really a shame. It gives all of us a black eye, really, and it's a shame, but it's the world we live in today.
And really, that's where the good and the bad of the paranormal being on TV brings us. Some of us have lifelong experiences and we're trying to help people. Other people just want to delve into it. But we're at the end of our time. Can you tell our listeners where to find your books and where to find you?
Yeah, you can find my books on Amazon, like the West Virginia Bigfoot book. Just type in the title or type in my name, and it'll pop up in the author and book section. Also, another book I've written a piece in, Wood Knocks by David Weatherly, his whole series on that. My website is www.davespinks.paranormalinvestigator.com. If you want a signed copy of my book, you can PayPal me $18 to topshooter1569@gmail.com on PayPal, and include your shipping address, and I'll send you a book out in the mail, signed. And check out my stuff. My new book's going to drop anytime now on Amazon. It's called Real West Virginia Hauntings, Volume 1. And of course, there's links to my Facebook and all my social media on the website. You can learn about Society of the Supernatural. Me and David Weatherly created that, and we got a phenomenal group of people involved with that. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Eric Altman, Barry Gaunt, Kristen Lee, owner of the Blair House, and Ross Allison, owner of Spooked in Seattle and the Seattle Underground. A whole bunch of folks that have many, many years of experience in the paranormal field. And, check it out. Check out my website. If you have any experiences you want to share, sightings, there's a page on my website for that. You can call, leave me a message, or type in your experience in the box provided. And I hope to hear your stories and accounts. You never know. I might use one of your stories in my books.
Heck yeah. That's the bestest.
Yeah.
Well, I got to thank you again so much for being my guest tonight, and it was so wonderful having you on the show this evening.
I appreciate it. Anytime. Enjoyed it. And, keep talking about the paranormal, folks. That's knowledge is power.
That's right. And thank you to everyone on Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, Deep Talk Radio, and wherever else you are listening in the universe tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening, and it was my pleasure, literally and figuratively, and I can't wait to do it again tomorrow night. And we have horror expert William Pattison on, talking about the horror artists of the month on spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we own the night. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light to all my space cases out there. You guys have a wonderful Sunday, and I'll see you all back here tonight for our horror show. It's going to be awesome and epic and amazing. And if you guys want to come in to the after party, you can call in 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596. And I look forward to seeing you guys. And thank you again so much, Dave, for being on my show tonight. I appreciate you coming in so last minute. It was amazing.
My pleasure.
Alright, so I hope to see you there on the after party. And you guys, make sure you come in. Hang out with us. It'll be an awesome time.